We will be starting in a couple of minutes. Thanks everyone for joining. Hi, Chris, you there? Hi, everyone. Sorry, we had a couple technical difficulties. My name's Danielle Palomara, and I'm the event manager with Birdeye. And Chris Latshaw, he should be hopping on shortly. He's just having some difficulties with his mic, so I'll go ahead and get us started. We are going to be starting with Emma. She's the affinity program manager with Clio, and she's going to be talking about the tools and tips for virtual marketing and client intake. So Emma, if you would like to go ahead and get us kicked off.
Sure. I'm not able to share my video just yet, but I think that's okay. I don't think many of you need to see me, or if you do want to, we'll probably get that started in just a second. I wanted to share my screen with you though. And like Danielle said, I'll be talking about tools and tips for virtual marketing and client intake. But I kind of want to start out the discussion with just some general tips and that will help you as you move virtual. So many of you are facing, the transition that we're all going through right now with having to take our firm virtual, whatever that means. I'm going to, let me try my video. Oh, it looks like it's working. So hello everyone, I can't really see myself and I know I'm sitting behind a bright light. So hopefully that's okay. All right, I'm just gonna move this over and let's get started. So just a little bit about my background. I am Emma Ramey-Zlotich, complicated last name, but I work at Clio. So Clio is a case management software company that helps you manage everything from billing to invoicing online virtually, as well as we have a secure client portal for communicating with clients, document storage, all of that. And then in addition, we have a CRM and client intake software, which is also allows you to handle all of that intake virtually. So I'll be going over some tips and tools that I've learned throughout the course of that. And I also have a background in law. I graduated from the University of Houston Law Center and actually ended up not practicing law. I moved into tech right after law school. So that was kind of a passion of mine. I ended up going to a couple different startups and working in ed tech first before I moved into legal tech, finding out that that really, was my passion overall. And I started an attorney recruiting company as well for about 2.5 years before joining Lexicata, which many of you might have been previous members of Lexicata, which was acquired by Clio to create Clio Grow. So let's just start out by talking about some general tools. And I'd love to, as I go through this, ask any questions that you have about either of these tools or about maybe something that I mentioned that you want a little more information on, or something that I didn't mention. But I do want to talk firstly just about some general tools that can really help you during this time, because I know we're all struggling to get set up quickly. Maybe we've set up the bare minimum because it has been going on. We have been quarantining probably for about a month at least now. So, we've had to make that quick transition. But what are some tools that can really help you during this time? Well, there are a few things. So I want to start out by how do you internally communicate with your staff? So many of you may be solos. Some of you may have a virtual staff, well, maybe not virtual previously, but now virtual. So how are you talking to them on a day-to-day basis? And there's a whole plethora of tools. Some of them are free, some are a little more costly, but just an example, one of the tools that my company actually uses, we've been actually practicing working remotely for some time now. So we use a tool called Slack, and that's really common in the tech community to quickly be able to talk amongst one another. There's also just tools that are free within your G Suite, for instance. So if you use Google, you have your G Chat open, and a number of plethora of other tools that can allow you to quickly chat with staff. I think setting up those processes early is a great idea, because you want to make sure, again, that you're not spending all your day in emails back and forth with your staff. So a great way to communicate is to get one of these external tools. Also, making sure that clients and prospects have a way to quickly connect with you. I know our phones at our office are probably off. Maybe we have call forwarding, but having a free or paid service like a VoIP phone provider can really help with that. It gives you an external number that they can call. Then there's things like video conferencing software. So what we're using right now, how do you connect with clients and prospects to do those initial consults when you're fully remote and working from your home? And I know we all have those distractions, but this is a quick way to really connect and see a person face to face. So we have this video conferencing software like Zoom that we're on right now. GoToWebinar is an example of more of a webinar software, and Google Hangouts is actually a pretty good one as well. So if we go over to the next slide, I want to talk about a little more technical tools as well that I think every firm should think about, especially as we're storing tons of documents. So if you're a firm collecting client intake forms from clients, where are you storing that information? You need to make sure that you have some sort of cloud-based document storage system, and also that you're managing your cases virtually through some sort of case management software. Now, Clio does this, Clio Manage, but there's also a plethora of other ones. I think having at least something that provides you with that tool to communicate, send out online client bills, set up payment plans, accept credit card payments. It's super important to have that ability now more than ever before. So I think as you're thinking through some of these things, I highly recommend Googling case management software and finding more about that. And then, as I mentioned, CRM and client intake software is kind of the first set of software you want to think about when you're going through that intake process at your firm. I know, you know, the way that we market to clients right now has probably changed. We can't do, I think billboard advertisements are probably not as profitable anymore because less people are driving in general. Maybe paid print mailers, for instance, are not going to be as profitable as well. Maybe people aren't at their home address that you have for them, etc. So especially if you market to businesses, a lot of them will be at their physical offices. So turning that online and having a way to capture all that client and prospective client information in one system will provide you with this CRM and client intake software. So a lot of you may not be familiar with what a CRM is. I'll just quickly explain. Basically, it's a very common tool in other businesses, and I think legal is getting there. But it essentially stands for client relationship management software or contact relationship management software. But it's a great tool to manage the intake process for your firm from start to finish. So essentially, from when they come through your door as a prospect to when they actually hire you, and if they hire you. So you can start tracking the reasons why potentially people aren't as well, and make sure that you have an automated sequence, for example, to follow up with them. So Clio, for example, does a lot of these things. So the Clio Manage is our case management software. Clio Grow is our client intake software, and Clio Suite is kind of a combined bundle of that. And one of our great integration partners with Clio Manage is actually Birdeye. So this is a really awesome feature that you can plug in for requesting referrals and getting reviews. So I will follow up with that in just a second, but I want to finalize just some general tools that we're talking about really quickly. So things like a secure client portal that you're talking through. A lot of prospects at this time are actually probably thinking about security. So they know that your firm has turned virtual, and how do you promise to them before they become your client, or how do you set yourself above the competition by setting the standard for security early? And I think making sure that you have some sort of encryption with your documents, that you have a secure client portal, and telling your prospects and clients that is really will set you apart from many of the firms currently. So Clio, for instance, has a secure portal called Clio Connect that allows you, for example, with 256-bit encryption, which is bank secured encryption, and the way to communicate and share documents and things. So you don't just want to be transmitting your confidential documents or requesting documents from prospects, for instance, about their court matters via email. You want to make sure you have some secure portal for that. And you also want to make sure, especially now more than ever, that you can collect your payments online. And finally, one really quick tool that I think if you are a solo attorney, or if you're having difficulty capturing a lot of the phone calls that you have right now with staff currently, virtual receptionist services are a really, really great quick plugin that you can kind of get for your firm to manage all of those calls. And I think when we think virtual receptionist services, a lot of us think about robots answering the phone, and it's less of a human touch, right? And that is not what I'm referring to at all. So it's more so actual human beings answering the phone. It's just outsourced receptionist services, so that when you say it's 8 o'clock and you don't want to be working around the clock just because you went virtual, a virtual receptionist will help take that call for you and leave a message so that you can follow up the next day. So let's jump into the general software and tools that you should think about for connecting with clients in terms of marketing, client intake during this time. So a lot of us are going virtual. What are some resources that we should think about as we do that? So there's a couple different metrics, and I know I talk fast, so I'm going to try to slow it down here and leave this screen up if you want to take a quick screenshot of it. But these are some metrics that I highly recommend, that there's no better time to start than now in tracking some of these metrics to see who is coming to your firm. Where are they coming from? Because although it has slowed down potentially for many of us, it's going to be important to follow up on those prospects that are coming to you and understand where they're coming from, so you're not spending your money in frivolous places, right? You're not spending, for instance, if LinkedIn marketing is not working for your firm, don't spend all your money on LinkedIn marketing. But how do you know that? And I think one of the issues that I've seen with many firms is that a lot of them actually just aren't tracking this information in general. So they spend, for example, 10K here, 10K there during the year, and maybe it's not the best place to put your money. Maybe you could have spent it a lot more strictly, a lot less, and actually had a better payout. So some of the marketing metrics that I really suggest tracking are, first of all, lead source. So lead source basically tells you where your prospects are coming from. And especially as we're doing online ads, we're maybe going to Facebook to post online, and maybe we've never done that before. Having unique links that track from Facebook over to, and you can see that someone came in through that site or clicked on an ad that way, that would show you your lead source. Also making sure that it's as simple as this: when someone calls you asking, hey, how did you find our firm? That's super essential, and just something that all of your staff, especially as they're moving virtual, should be trained on. So you can find out the source of where these prospects are coming from, and over time, even in a month from now, be able to track that to see, hey, most of my clients actually found me through a family or family friend referral. Or most of my clients are finding me through LinkedIn right now because I've been posting these great ads, but I've also been posting on Facebook, and looks like no one has been looking at those ads because they haven't said it or they haven't clicked on it, right? So understanding that is important, and we'll go over the tools that can help you track some of these in just a second. But then also understanding how many prospective clients you're getting in a month, in a couple months, etc. And then conversion rate. So what that really means is, out of X people that are coming to your firm inquiring about services, are you tracking how many are actually converting into clients? And also, not only that, but how many are actually not converting into clients? And what are the reasons for not converting? Because those may actually be potential clients down the road. They might remember you because of your great connection with them, your great services while you were talking to them. And you can follow up with them if, for instance, they just didn't decide to hire you because right now money is tight, and maybe later they'll have more cash, and it's a better time for them to hire an attorney. So tracking that conversion rate is really helpful. And as I mentioned, click-through rates in terms of ads. If you're paying for ads, please track the click-throughs. I think that's one of the most important things, that most of these ads, when you pay for them on any sort of online service, they actually do report the click-through rates directly to you. So that's a really important thing to track. You want to see how many people are actually clicking, even if they're not calling you. Are people at least looking at these, right? Are they clicking on the ads? And then what's the value per matter, value per case? So if you are a immigration firm right now, let's say people are coming to you for H-1B, and then they're also coming to you for more like family immigration, marital immigration matters. Well, what is really pays off more for you, and understanding that, hey, maybe, you know what, it's worth my time. I'm spending like 10 hours doing this, H-1B that I charge less for, but it only takes me 10 hours versus I'm taking on this huge case. I'm charging a bit more, but I'm putting way more hours in. You want to measure that through the value of the case. So you can measure that with your case management software as you track out the amount of billable hours that you have for these cases. And then what types of matters are people coming to you for? And that really may be different now, right? So with COVID, with many different areas of law, courts are closed, potentially reopening in different states now, slowly. But a lot of us have kind of been put on hold, or maybe had to transition to new types of matters. Maybe we work in family, but we are focusing on one particular area in family law right now. So understanding what types of matters people are coming to you most and tracking that is really, really essential, especially right now. So you can kind of pivot your firm in the direction that you need to, maybe not necessarily want to, but need to in order to make a profit and run your firm effectively in this current state. And then things like utilization, realization, and collection. So utilization essentially is the amount of time, tracking the amount of time that it could potentially cost to work on a matter. Realization is what you actually collect in terms of those billable hours. So maybe you are working your utilization rate on a particular matter, like I mentioned. Oh, I'm going to move this over, but maybe your utilization rate on a particular matter is, you know, I've billed out 20 hours for this particular matter. It's taking me 20 hours to work on it, but my realization rate and when I'm actually billing to the client, I only billed 10 hours. So I cut my hours to make them happy. Understanding what you're cutting, is it worth your time, etc. That goes back to value of the case is really important. And collection, this is the one that we all love the most, I think. Collection is the rate of the billable hours that you're actually collecting. So you send over the bill, and does the client pay? That's why it's essential to have some of these online forms of payment also set up for your firm through things like Clio Payments. LawPay actually, which many of you may have heard of, runs Clio Payments. So it's run in the back end through LawPay. So that's a really great online way to collect payments and work with clients there and collect the billable hours that you do. And then NPS. So right now we're thinking through, maybe a lot of your work has actually stalled, right? We're thinking through the different ways that we can market our firm. How can we transition to online, more promotion? How can we communicate with clients virtually? Well, you want to get NPS, which is essentially a score of 0 to 10. You ask the client to rate you on a 0 to 10 scale of how likely they are to refer your firm. And that will give you an idea of these clients that are satisfied with your firms, the ones that are likely to give you good reviews. And that's really essential, actually, especially for Birdeye when you're asking for different reviews online. You want to make sure that they actually are going to give you a good review, right? So those are going to give you an indicator of the 9s and 10s, those high people that rate you a 9 and 10. Those are going to be your best clients, the ones that are satisfied with your services right now, that you can collect feedback from. But NPS is essentially that score to collect feedback. And there's many different other ways to do it. It's just a very popular one and a method developed by Harvard Business School, or Harvard Business Review, excuse me. So I do suggest having some sort of metric that helps you evaluate feedback, especially as a lot of your processes are changing during this time. So when we talked about tools earlier, I mentioned quite a bit of other tools, just general tools to help you run your firm effectively. But these are a list, and if you want to take a screenshot of this, please do. This is just a list of some of the ones that I thought of off the top of my head that really help with marketing and automating some of that process, especially as you work in a more remote environment. So ideally, this may look like a ton of tools, right? And you're like, my firm, first of all, can't invest in that many tools. I don't have time to train my staff and all those tools. Don't worry about that so much as understanding what these are, and you can kind of go at it more piecemeal. Maybe you think you want a tool that plugs in with many, right? So for instance, Clio Manage, our case management software, which I suggest every firm have some sort of online billing tool, timekeeping tool, which case management does, plugs in with, for instance, Birdeye. So you want a tool, if you use Birdeye, you want to make sure it works with something else. Same with virtual receptionist services. Clio Grow, our client intake software, plugs into your virtual receptionist so that you get those notifications. It's essential that you kind of add on these slowly. I don't suggest just going and purchasing every single type of software on this list. Start from maybe the biggest, most essential need first, and then pile on as you see fit and as you train your staff, which is really, really essential in yourself, right? You need to dedicate time to it, and I'm not saying that it's going to be an easy transition. So it is something that, you know, you really have to dedicate your time towards. In terms of the types of tools, or the CRM, I think, is one of the first and most essential tools that every attorney should kind of be using and tracking their intake process. So what it does is, again, essentially tracks from start to finish who's coming to your firm, what prospects came to your firm. You can set up automated emails through that system, etc., and track the reasons why they hired you or didn't hire you. You can track things like value of the matter, all those type of details that I mentioned. But that's really common, again, in most businesses outside of the law. So I think the law is catching up in understanding that the CRM really is an essential piece, but now it's more essential than ever when you're communicating with staff during the intake process virtually, and also communicating with clients virtually. Maybe you're scheduling appointments right now completely virtually. How do you do that? A CRM usually can help you with that. Then there's also email marketing. So you want to automate that. Sometimes a CRM can do that. Sometimes you may, if you do really complex campaigns, which maybe you want to invest in that now more than ever, you want that email marketing types of software. So for instance, if you are sending out a newsletter, or you haven't been sending out a newsletter, but you think, hey, you know what? I have a lot of information that I want to share with my previous clients so that they can come back to me. Email marketing is an email marketing quick tool that abides by the CAN-SPAM rules so that you're not putting yourself in, you know, potentially legal situations, and also making sure that you can quickly automate that process of sending repeat emails is really essential. And then there's things to manage your social media, like Hootsuite, virtual receptionist and chat bots on your website. So if you want to capture the people that are coming to visit you, chat bots are a really good way for that. Appointment booking software, sometimes done through a CRM. If you don't have it done through a CRM, there's different tools like Calendly, and I'm forgetting the other one, but I know there's a couple tools which basically allow clients to book appointments, or prospects to book appointments directly through a link. So you can share your calendar with them and they can schedule it. So for instance, with Clio Grow, our CRM and client intake software, that's already included. They can also schedule payments directly through that too. So if you charge for your consults, which maybe you didn't before, but now you need to, you're able to set up that, as well as payment plans and things like that. And then referral and reports and referral tracking. So some sort of tracking tool is essential. I can go into quickly some examples of these, but I do think having this set up, as I mentioned, I'll go to the previous slide, there's all of these different metrics that you need to track. And how do you do that? You need to have some sort of reporting set up. So maybe it's an Excel if that's the best that you can do right now, and just do it. You know, I see many firms that are not tracking any of those metrics, and honestly, sometimes that's more money down the drain than just investing in a, you know, $40 per month, even $100 per month type of software. Whereas you're losing money when you're putting money towards ads, for paid ads, for instance, and not tracking any of those resources or those metrics that I mentioned. And then lastly, a way to track those surveys and feedback that you're collecting. You really want to be collecting feedback more than ever this time to make sure that your virtual, especially if this is one of the first times that you've gone remote fully at your firm, you want to get feedback from your clients currently and from prospects about how this whole new process has been for them, so that you can iterate on that, so that you can make sure that you change up the process based on the needs of your prospects and clients, and really take that into consideration. So here's just a couple examples of some tools that I found that are really valuable. So virtual receptionist tools, I've just listed out a few. Same with chatbots and text communication tools. Note there is quite a few others. So for instance, in text communication, there's Dialpad 2, I believe, that does that. And online contact forms. So you want to make sure, if you don't already, and actually this is something that I've seen with many firms, a lot of firms actually don't have websites created just yet. You can use WordPress and you can use Squarespace, which is actually a little simpler than WordPress, I believe, if you need to make a quick website. Squarespace is really simple. I've created a few websites without even knowing anything of my own about how to create a website through Squarespace, but WordPress provides you with a little better SEO eventually, so that might be in your interest to kind of go in more of the, it's not exactly coding, but it does take a little bit longer to create. But having some sort of website set up, I've actually seen many firms that don't, and as we know, now more than ever, this is probably essential. How are clients going to find you? How are they going to look up your reviews online? How are they going to Google you when you don't have a website? Or are they going to trust that review that they read when you don't have a website? So you want to make sure you have that, and that you have a contact page, at least a contact page or an online intake form loaded there, so that people can quickly type in their information and request a consult from you. And then there's email communication too. So again, you have tools like MailChimp for those mass emails that you want to send out if you want to do newsletters and things like that, or Clio Grow, for instance, our CRM and client intake software for more of the one-on-one automated emails. And I think this is something that many of us think, you know, we spend a lot of time on currently. So many people might be sending out these same sort of emails every time. So every time someone follows up, or every time a new prospect comes in, maybe you're sending the same email to them. Thank you for reaching out to your firm. To our firm, someone will be in touch with you about X. Right? You want to have an automated email template set up either through your client intake software, your CRM, or through some sort of automated email outside software, such as MailChimp, or there's certain plugins within Google that you can actually create templates in as well. So to just give you an example of the website stuff, I know I talked a bit about why on your website you need a contact form, and this is more important than ever. How is someone going to reach out to you, especially if maybe your phone, you're not answering your phone, they're gonna go to the next person, right? So in order to capture that contact quickly and efficiently and be able to follow up, you want not only a contact form on your website that has as few of fields as necessary. So you don't want to be collecting a whole plethora of a 3-page intake form, for instance. I've seen that as well. You really want to have these main fields so that clients don't, or prospects don't feel like, oh, this is like going to a doctor's office, I don't want to finish this form. You want to have just as many as necessary, but really limit it to the main things, information that you need, and then have a way to see and get notified immediately when someone follows up. So one of the things that we found, Clio actually publishes a report on legal trends in the industry called the Legal Trends Report every single year. And one of the things we found in this year's Legal Trends Report is that many firms were actually not following up within the 24-hour expected time period that prospects were expecting. So it was super low in terms of phone communication and email communication. The responsiveness rate of firms versus of what clients expect was much more limited. So you want to make sure that to stay above the competition, to set your firm apart and make sure that they're not going to another competitor right after reaching out, you want to make sure you have a method of being pinged and notified directly. And that is a good, the plugin to a case management, or excuse me, to a CRM, and then to a case management software if you get hired, is really essential. That way you know you get notified, the contact is immediately created, and you can have a way of tracking the progress of, hey, did my, for instance, did my intake representative at my firm follow up immediately after Casey Campbell reached out? Well, you can track that because you can tell if Casey Campbell is still in your inbox or what status she's in your CRM. So that's a really essential way, especially as we work virtually and communicate with staff right now, to see where things are. And then, for instance, I mentioned you can do public intake forms on your website. Again, even if you do this, I recommend that you do not make these intake forms like 3-4 pages. I don't know who here really enjoys going to an initial doctor's visit and filling that out, but let's not make our services also seem like that. So the less information you need originally, the better. So make this as simple as possible for the client and think about the client experience as you do that. And then online e-signatures. This is something, not every state has accepted e-signatures for certain types of things like wills and trust, and it's important to check your state's requirements. But for most states, they have accepted online signatures for signing, for instance, retainer agreements, so engagement letters. And you can send out those through online, directly online. Through DocuSign, HelloSign, which actually integrates directly with Clio Grow, so you don't have to pay for that separate service. But taking a look at how you can make that process efficient, especially as a new prospect comes into your firm, you want to make sure that the ease of getting to be your client is as easy as possible, right? And tools like this during the intake process really help that. And then there's also monitoring tasks and workflow management in general. So you want to make sure that you have a way of tracking not only tasks that have been done with the client, but also monitoring what your staff is doing during the intake process or what other partner attorneys are doing, whoever works at your firm. So let's say you are the partner and you oversee, a couple different associates who are working on different matters. Maybe you also oversee the paralegal and the receptionist. You want to know what they have done this week, right? And it becomes harder and harder as we go virtual. So having tools like a CRM or case management software to track tasks and also automate task assignments is really essential, especially during the intake process, to make sure that that process runs more smoothly for your client, to create that better client experience overall, and also the ease of communication for your firm internally. So there's also this feature that we just actually launched in Clio Grow called Clio Scheduler, and it integrates now with payments. So essentially, I mentioned this quickly, but having some sort of way to schedule these appointments with prospects virtually is really essential right now more than ever. Many of us may still be reaching out to a prospect over the phone saying, all right, what time are you available? Let me check my schedule. Let me look here. Oh, I can't do that time. Well, the easiest way to do this is actually to automate that. You send your prospect or your client over a quick link, exactly like this. And you can do this through Calendly as well. Those are also usually paid services, but it creates that better client experience and better prospect experience in general, to be able to just look at your calendar and say, you know what, I'm going to book Friday at 2 p.m. And it looks like the attorney is also available at Friday at 2 p.m. You don't need any kind of middleman talk in order to do that. So here's also an example of the e-signature portion that you can do, and I think is really, really essential. So I know we're running short on time. I just want to quickly mention some other reporting tools. And like I said, if you're not using anything at all, at least use Excel to track some of these metrics like lead source, things like that, as you start changing your firm's processes to see what works and to see what doesn't, right? And then as you expand, as you add on a case management system, you can track your billing and productivity in that. You can also track marketing metrics and custom reports through different tools. And maybe if you do use paid ads, you can use the ad software, depending on if it's on LinkedIn, which I believe they provide you with those reports, or Google Analytics if you're doing website reporting. All of those things come typically with some reports for you. So make sure you're looking at that. And not only that, I think one final thing to mention about reports is that many firms, from what I see, are, they're setting aside, they're creating these reporting tools, but they're not setting aside time to actually review them. So maybe schedule a every other week appointment, or maybe once a month if that's the time that you have to review these. So schedule it in your calendar now so that you remember to look these over, because it's super essential that you iterate and you change and you're adaptable based on what you're seeing, the trends you're seeing in these reports. And then finally, I want to talk about referrals and review manager. So Birdeye is a great tool for review management. And then there's also tools to capture those surveys. So for instance, if you want to survey your clients, and I suggest not only surveying clients before or after they become your client, but during the process, because especially now as it's becoming more difficult to find clients in some certain practice areas, you want to make sure that you're setting yourself above the standard, right? You're making that really good client experience for those prospects, and you want to make sure that they feel that way, right? That you're meeting their expectations. So in order to understand if you are, create a survey or create some sort of method. Maybe it's just making sure that in your process during the intake cycle, you ask directly, hey, how was your experience? What would you change? What did you really like about our client intake cycle? What feedback do you have for us? So those are some things that I suggest. And then again, you can track this in Excel or in a more advanced CRM or software, but making sure you're tracking referrals. Referrals are actually going to be an impeccable source of new revenue for your firm, probably now more than ever. And the reason why is just there's less people hiring attorneys for certain practice areas, right? They're more tight on money. Maybe they don't have the cash currently to spend. So you want to make sure you're understanding who will refer you so that you can get good reviews from them. And then also making sure that you're tracking those referrals that you get and reaching out to those great clients that did refer you business by tracking this information. So I'm going to just sum up. I think I'm running a little bit short on time, so I'm going to just sum up with a couple brief slides on the client-centered approach, because I think that is more important than ever before. Many of us are figuring out how to run virtual right now. But we really need to focus and make sure that whatever virtual system we're setting up currently is meeting client expectations. So this was one of the biggest takeaway points in our CEO's recent book, The Client-Centered Law Firm, which actually talked about it's not just about exceeding client expectations, it's actually just about meeting them. If you meet your client expectations, you have a higher chance than many competitive law firms of retaining them and also getting repeat referral business. So in order to do that, you need to understand law firms, right? You need to understand what they need. So in our legal trends report, again, that we publish every single year, we actually did a survey of responsiveness. And I think this is probably something to keep in mind more than ever as we're going virtual, because we need to make sure that we are being responsive. And this is what clients expect in general in terms of responsiveness. That may have changed as many clients are, you're at home all the time. Why can't you just pick up the phone? Again, you need to make sure that you meet those expectations and also set them with your prospects early on. So if you're not able to pick up the phone within 24 hours, you tell them that directly right off the bat, but that is what most clients expect. And unfortunately, we saw in our legal trends report that that's not what many firms are delivering. So in terms of phone calls, 39% went to voicemail of the ones that we reached out to, and then 57% didn't even return those calls within 72 hours. So again, you can stay actually on top of those prospects and make sure you maintain them by just kind of being a little bit better than this, right? Making sure you're meeting those expectations. Same with the email communication here. We didn't see great results. In many firms were not even responding to the initial emails at all. And if they did, only 82% responded within that 24-hour time period that clients expect. So I want to finalize this by just saying that as you're thinking through your process of how you're going to set up your firm virtually, how you're going to do marketing, I think in order to make sure that your firm is one of those thriving firms, there's two metrics that you want to make sure you exceed in. So one is responsiveness in terms of the client experience, right? You want to make sure you deliver on that exceptional client experience by being responsive and follow up with your prospects, right? You're a responsive firm. But then you also want to make sure that you don't do that while not taking in regards productivity of your firm. So it's essential that you have the tools in place, that you have the automated systems that can make your firm run in order to be responsive, right? And you need both. It's not just about, hey, I followed up, but I have no way to track that communication follow-up, right? You want to make sure that your firm is efficient as well. So that's just something to think about as we go through this, and understanding how to pitch these, the way that your firm is working currently to prospects is really essential. Make sure that clients understand the tools that you've set in place, understand that you will adapt those if it doesn't make sense for the client, and also just make sure that they understand the virtual nature of your services and what communication timeline to expect is really essential as we go forward. So I'm going to sum up there and just open it up to some questions. And if you do want to contact me, this is my LinkedIn. I actually took it from LinkedIn, so you can just snap it's my QR code. You can just snap an image and you can connect with me via there. So I'll open it up to some questions, Danielle, if there's any that came in.
Hi, Emma. How are you?
Oh, hey. Hi, Chris.
A little bit of technical difficulty there at the beginning, so I'm sorry I wasn't able to introduce you.
No worries.
Great presentation, though. A couple things that came in while you were speaking. Tim Beland mentions that Answer Hero is another virtual service that could be used. And Mike mentions that for a texting product that integrates with Clio, there's Connect. So
for texting, Clio Connect?
Yeah. With texting, I guess, texting service that Connect integrates with Clio.
Yeah, so Clio Connect is actually our secure client portal that allows you to communicate with clients directly through that encryption that I mentioned, like not via email, but through 256-bit encryption, which is stronger than email, allows you to share files, share messages in a more encrypted manner. But Clio actually is coming out with quite a few more plugins, so integration partners that will integrate in terms of texting. And I do think you can actually go online and look at our, if you go onto Clio.com and go into our app directory, you can see a whole list of, and there's a section specifically listed there for texting that you can find more text integration partners.
Awesome. I'm going to turn off my camera and check the questions and see what we have for you.
Perfect. And while you're doing that, I just want to mention, especially as I know this was a really quick presentation, so I want to mention a couple more resources that Clio has that we kind of launched in response to all the different needs that firms are coming up with in COVID, and I can put these in the chat. But one is our work from home resources page on our website. If you go onto Clio.com, on the right-hand side under resources, you should just see a work from home page, and it literally lists a whole plethora of online resources from things like mindfulness and wellness to technology and webinars that you can register for to learn more about a lot of the things that I mentioned here really briefly. And then we also host our monthly CLEs and virtual meetups. So you can register on our website under resources. If you go there, we have an upcoming webinars page. You can register for CLEs directly through there as well, because I know this was a really quick conversation. So a lot of the things I talked about are going to be talked about in way more depth in a lot of those different webinars and meetups.
Couple quick questions. Can you flash your QR code again?
Yep.
Can you bring that back up? Awesome. And then the client-centered law firm is the book by Jack, correct?
Yes. So Jack Newton, our CEO, released actually last year the Client-Centered Law Firm book. It's not what you would expect, I think, with many firms. I actually went to a conference last year when conferences were a thing. And I was passing out the book, and many firms were like, oh, this is perfect. I'm going to set it on my desk and my clients will think that I'm client-centered now, right? And that's not exactly what it means. It actually talks about the different mechanisms that firms can use to be client-centered, and also what it takes, right? So things like what I mentioned, those meeting client expectations, and gives examples of firms that actually have taken that client-centered approach and how it's made them profitable. But as we're struggling right now, I actually think that's a really, really good read, because it helps you redefine and iterate on some of those processes we have currently.
I finally got my copy in the mail yesterday, so I'm excited.
Perfect.
Let's see here. What are some of the ways you can advertise your services virtually right now?
Yeah, so I suggest I think, I can't stress this enough. I think your website is going to be your #1 resource, right? Update that. If you don't have it, make sure you have a contact form on your website, like contact us. It can have first name, last name, email, phone, and a message. That's all the information you need in order to follow up with someone. So make sure it has a place for a contact us page. And then another place is reviews, right? You want to make sure that, hey, maybe you didn't have time previously because you were so freaking busy that you forgot to follow up with so many people to ask them to review your firm after their great client experience, right? Maybe you knew that they were really happy with your services, but you forgot to follow up with them. Well, then now is the time to collect those reviews. Make sure you're gathering much more on Yelp, on Google, right? Making sure you're building up your firm's reputation there. Create those Facebook pages for your firm. Create LinkedIn pages. Those are some of the free advertising methods I've thought of. And then social media like Twitter is actually a really big tool, I think, now more than ever. And it's not really about posting ads per se, but making sure you're giving like helpful content to people. So especially if you're in one of those firms that maybe doesn't have many clients right now, maybe clients are quarantined and can't afford to hire you, right? Or actually just can't physically hire you for those services, making sure you're educating them on what to do currently or what to think about in the future for setting up their end of life plan, right? Something like that. But I think the more educational information you can throw out on different pages or forums, Twitter just comes to mind because it's super public. But again, taking that educational tone, maybe publishing blog articles at this time if you're not super busy. Those are some avenues that I suggest.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Emma. It's always a pleasure to listen to you speak. And I appreciate your spending time with us this afternoon.
Sure. Thanks so much, Chris.
You bet. Take care.
Thanks.
Our next guest is Thomas Moronic Jr. He's the founder and managing partner of the law office of Thomas J. Moronic Jr., a general practice firm with key focus areas in criminal defense and personal injury. He has over 12 years experience practicing in Maryland in federal courts handling felony and misdemeanor crimes, as well as bankruptcy, personal injury, and domestic cases. He's regularly sought out by the media, including the Baltimore Sun, local Baltimore and Eastern Shore TV, about his own cases, and has served as a commentator to the Washington Post and Canadian television network CTV News. He is a 3-time Super Lawyers honoree, 2017 through 2018 Rising Stars and 2020 Super Lawyers, and has an AV rating on Martindale-Hubbell, as well as being honored by the Daily Record as one of the top 40 under 40 business owners in 2014. Moronic Law was named in 2018 the fifth fastest growing law firm in the United States by Law Firm 500. Tom is a native of Baltimore, and when not practicing law or managing the firm, sings jazz music, acts in local theater, and hosts a weekend radio show on WCBM. He is married and lives in Hanover, Maryland. Today's topic, brought to you by Tom, is how to keep your employees and thrive during coronavirus.
Well, hello. Great presentation by Emma, and thank you all for being here. You know, this time of year is very difficult because we're all suffering some of the same things. We're all dealing with some of the same issues. And I'm going to pull up my presentation so you see more of me, or less of me, but more of the screen. So I'm going to try to figure out the technical sides of this so you can see my screen. So bear with me just a second as I do that. I've been working in this field for almost 13 years, and it's a situation where I think as you grow and as you look to grow, you have to thrive, not just survive. And that's really what you want to do more than anything else. You want to thrive, not survive. So I'm going to now start this presentation, and hopefully you have some fun. This is the title of my presentation, How to Stay Afloat. But as I said, it's Thrive, Not Survive. I do a lot of criminal defense. I found that that's a great way to go, because what happens in criminal defense is you get the case that comes in however they find you, the phone call, the letter you send them. And then after they receive that, you sign them up for the case, you go to court, and then after the case is over, you are fully paid. Sometimes if you're hired for post-conviction work, there could be additional work from there. But the problem right now is that people aren't arresting. The stay-at-home order means folks are not out driving. So when you have that be the situation, you have to find other ways to do things. So the first thing that I said is, I need to find a way to get myself okay. So I start every day with yoga. And yoga is great because it stretches out your body and it stretches out your mind. You think better. You walk into each day with an openness. And I think that's helped a lot. I realized that some of the other aspects of my firm, I mentioned criminal defense, but as you see on the screen, there's bankruptcy, there's family law, there's personal injury, there's administrative law. I really wasn't paying enough attention to those areas. And now when people are forced to stay at home and not be on the roads, what they do need is help in other areas. So if you're an employment lawyer, maybe one of the things you're looking to do is really reach out to your current clients, but also find ways to reach out to other people's clients, meaning talk to people who are referral partners and let those referral partners know that you're doing employment law, for example. For us, it was a situation where we knew how to do bankruptcy. We were doing some bankruptcy, but we really weren't marketing for it. We figured out that what we needed to do was find other ways to reach our clients. So March 13th happens. I was in a DUI trial, and I thought this is a great day. I'd filed a number of motions in the trial and was denied on all of them, but when it came to that reasonable doubt argument, the judge found my client not guilty on everything. It was my last trial right before the courts closed in Maryland. The 13th is when the administrative order came out. So I didn't get the set of steak knives. Instead, I got the order that said courts are shut down. So the first week following this order, we saw revenue go down quite a bit. That was pretty much all of us because the new calls were coming in. But it was also the social distancing. It was also a situation where businesses were sort of running for the hills. And so we pretty much had an idea of what are we going to do? We're going to decide to quit and just close our doors and put a sign that said we're not taking new clients except through phone, or are we going to try to find another way to do business? So the options were three. We could either throw our hands up and shout at the world. We could try to settle as many personal injury cases as we could and hope for more to come, or obtain the information to formulate a plan for success. And I tried all three, really. My first reaction was to throw my hands in the air. The second was to focus on settling the PI. But if you do PI, you'll realize that there's only a certain number of cases that you can settle before you have the ones that go to trial, that have to go to trial. Of course, those trials are being delayed. And then, as I mentioned, the number of new cases just simply not coming in. So I focused on the third of those, getting the information. I started attending as many webinars as I could that were good webinars, not just your friends saying, hey, what are we drinking on Thursday, but webinars about things that were valuable. So I used a variety of resources, meaning outside business coaching. If there was a business coach that I admired, I really wanted to see their webinar. If Clio was hosting a webinar, I wanted to see it, not only just be a part of it as a presenter, but I wanted to hear that information. Birdeye. I went and found webinars that were being offered by many different folks, and I tried to take the best ideas from those and see, what am I doing right? What can I do better? What can I use to grow a plan? So some of the webinars involved law firm management and business management. We began finding that one of the main things we could do was to overserve our current clients and to do what are called gas calls. If you've ever heard that term before, what it means, sorry to say, but it's give a shit. That's what it is. You're giving a shit about those clients. And you're gas calling them. You're calling to say, hi, Mr. Smith, how's everything going? I represent you for X. What's going on with you? How are you handling the COVID crisis? Are you still able to work? How about your family? How about people that you know? How are things going? And then what you'll find in that gas call is that there's other areas that maybe Mr. Smith needs, not just the criminal case that you're representing him on or the personal injury case. May find that he doesn't have a succession plan. May find he doesn't have a will written. May find that his sister doesn't have a will written. And he was thinking about it, and particularly now, he has the time to do it. And he now has the desire, because what if something happens during this crisis? How is his family going to be taken care of? One of the things that we decided to do at my law firm was to reach out in that gas call and say, Mr. Smith, did you know we offer other services? And if we can be of service to you, we'd love to let you know. And if we can help you, just give us a call. We're happy to do it. And a lot of the time when you make those calls, it didn't even get that far. They'd say, you know, you do wills. I didn't know you did that. That's really something I'd like to talk to you about. Can we make an appointment? Sure, absolutely. If clients were not walking through the door, then we would ensure that our clients weren't leaving. So we'd call in the gas call to some of our best clients, but not just our best clients, any clients who had an upcoming court date. And we say to the clients, first of all, wanted to just check in on you. So you're expressing empathy. How are you doing during COVID? I want to touch base with you and see how you are and how your family is doing. Then you want to let them know the informational part, which is really 10% of the call. And that's just simply, hey, I wanted to let you know your court case has been postponed. In Maryland, our courts are closed until the 5th of June. But they're going to reopen approximately the 8th. So we can reasonably expect that our cases will be held then. Now, I want to point something out really quickly. This is the second closure. We actually had a notice for most criminal cases and most family civil cases that courts were actually closed just until May 1st. So there were people who've been postponed twice now. They got postponed until a date in May, and now they're being postponed again. So if we hadn't called them the first time, we're probably calling them a second time. We then wanted to get into asking about their other issues that may be there, or if they know someone, you know, and then we close the calls by saying, look, we have an open line of communication. Our firm is open during this crisis. As long as the state lets us see clients, we're going to keep our doors open. And by the way, that's not all firms. Many firms in Maryland just closed up. And I'm not here to make a point as to whether that's a good thing or not, but I'm here to say that by telling them that, I think that gave them some peace of mind. So by telling them our doors are open and the communication lines are open, it was a way for the clients to reach out to us, and that way we could stay in touch with them as developments happen in their case. Now, if you're a retainer-based billing firm, so you're a family practitioner, you bill strictly through the hourly retainer. If there's a 10-minute phone call, that goes into their next invoice. If you are a criminal practitioner who bills on milestones on a flat fee, I mean, in every state has different requirements. But no matter what kind of billing you use, if you're billing in increments, if you're going over discovery with them, that's a billable action. If you are discussing a paper that came in or an e-filing that came in a family case, that's an action that you can bill for. So you really are, in many cases, going to bill for that time unless it's just simply calling to check in and give them a new court date. So there's a lot of advantages to do that. Some clients who owed us money would go and pay their bill. How about that? Isn't that nice? You call in, the client hasn't fully paid for an upcoming case. You call in to check in on them. You haven't mentioned the word their bill. And then oftentimes they bring it up and say, hey, while I have you on the phone, I'd love to make a credit card payment. Great, let me get my receptionist, let me get my legal assistant on the line. She'll take care of that for you. But again, those questions that would come out. So what we would also do is advise them if it's a criminal case, for example, with somebody in jail. The courts are still hearing habeas corpus petitions. They are still hearing bail review petitions. They are still hearing protective order petitions. So we would offer these as services to clients to help them get their loved one out of the jail. And again, this is just simply from making that call, touching base with them. Many clients who were sort of detained in their own house, and that's really what it is. They expressed concern about their loved ones with safety for COVID due to the crisis. We had some folks that we offered just, if they were in a situation where finances were really tight, we would do the bail review just for free. But most folks were able to pay us to do the bail reviews as an extra fee if it was a habeas corpus or some other petition that wasn't called for in their initial agreement. In the span of 10 days, me and my firm filed 2 separate state appeals motions for bails, and we also filed a federal writ of habeas corpus. Different times overall have required different ideas, and I want to spend some time on this section, a few minutes. It got us to thinking, what could we do differently? What more could we do to market our firm? How could we reach out to clients in ways that they hadn't been reached out to before, but also to prospective clients? So we started a podcast that actually is going to debut pretty soon, but we wanted to do it the right way. So for our podcast, I went in and did some checking in as to what good podcasts, what elements a really strong podcast would have. And what we found is that podcasts have professional production. You don't want to start a podcast and have the production be really crappy, or it's just you saying, hi, I'm here. You want to have really strong production. And I have worked in radio in the past and even have a radio show, as you heard, on a station in the Baltimore market. And so I know a thing or two about a radio broadcast that sounds good. And podcast is, for lack of a better description, it's radio in your phone or radio through your iPod or iPad, whatever device you're on. So I went to the internet and found that there were a number of radio broadcasters, professional production guys, the people who do commercials. So when you're listening to your favorite radio channel, you hear a voice come on and say, hey, did you know you can get milk at blah, 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 such and such grocery store? Those guys are not working with the same regularity right now because their clients aren't producing as many ads. And that's something I'm going to get into in a minute. But they are offering services where they will do the production for your podcast. And even though I have a radio show, I'm not going to do my own production. So one of the things I did was I hired a firm to do the voice, and it was Get a Voice, I believe was the website. I'll try to pull that up for you at the end. But that specific production, you could pick from a list of announcers who could come on and announce your podcast. Our podcast is called Legal Junkie, and it focuses on Maryland. It focuses on the law. It focuses on pop culture too. We try to make it fun, but we wanted to get professional production. So I hired a firm to do that, and they added in music that they already had rights fees on. So that turned out really well. The second thing with the podcast is I wanted to get a website made, and I wanted to get a logo. So I found a place where I could get a logo for my website and also have them create the website. So I bought the domain name, legaljunkiepodcast.com, and then I went ahead and got a site to work on the website. And that's all almost done as we speak. But what does the podcast do? It's something that we hadn't done before, and that is to broadcast out in a way that could get picked up by other media. So if somebody likes your podcast and shares something that you talked about on social media, or better yet, if you broadcast your podcast on YouTube when you're filming it, that's something that can be shared on social media. So you're getting not only the person listening to the podcast, but you're also getting the YouTube blast. And if you do it in a professional manner, they're not going to think it's some idiot lawyer talking, they're going to think this is a really good professional podcast. So that's one of the things I wanted to do. We went and digitized our client info. We made sure that any client who's a current client and then our past clients were all in some sort of CRM. You heard that in the first presentation. So critical. You need to have all of your clients' information that you need to remarket out to them. You need to reach out to them in every single client meeting. If you get a client who retains your services, you're hoping that they do the 3 R's. You're hoping that they write a review for you. Now, right now, reviews, and you'll hear this from Chris, Google is not doing reviews in the same way because their staff has been furloughed or something, but I heard that that may be changing, and Chris will tell you more about that. But you want that client to write you a review. You want them to retain you for the services. The gas calls will help get that. The other thing you want them to do is refer. Now, if you are reaching out to them through an e-newsletter, if you're reaching out to them through the gas call, you're increasing your chances of the other 2 R's happening, of them referring you, of them reviewing you. You can ask them, hey, if you had a great experience, if you wouldn't mind, take a minute, write me a Google review. That's a good way to do it. You want to focus on that. You want them to do the 3 R's in every single case. And if they're going to do that, that's going to increase the value of every single lead that you get because you're turning them into a client who's also your best marketing source. And lawyers who are on here, I'm sure you'd agree, if you did a great job in a case, who is your best new client? Is it the person who's referred from another lawyer? Well, that's not a bad person. Or is it the person who's used you before, or is it the person who finds you in pay-per-click marketing? The reality is it's the prior client, because that person's going to be your greatest cheerleader to their friends, their family, to everybody, because they're going to say, this guy did a great job in my last case, and I think you'd be an idiot not to use it. That's what we call a really warm lead, or even a hot lead. And that's what you want to do. You want to find ways to turn it into that. So we did that. We've been creating that CRM of clients, and we're going to be e-blasting out the newsletter to them. Now, I hadn't done a lot of that in the past, but I'm doing it now, especially now, because I want that outreach and I want them to know about our menu of services. If you are a good steak restaurant, just think about law for a minute compared to another industry. If you're a good steak restaurant, if the client only likes steak and you do the best steak on the planet, then that's fantastic. But if you don't offer them some vegan options, if you don't offer them some fish, some salad, whatever it may be, then what you're doing is saying to all the other people who might come with that person who wants to have the steak, we're not going to be able to serve you. And then the conversation they have is, let's go to a different restaurant. So you have to think of yourself like the restaurant that caters to a lot of clients. Even if you do one thing, you want to be able to do more than one thing. You want to offer them more of an array of services if you can. Now, if you are strictly a personal injury firm and they come in with a criminal case, you can tell them, hey, look, I may not be the one who handles your criminal case, but I will definitely find the right lawyer for you, make you a great referral. You want to at least outreach that you're going to help them no matter what their legal needs are. We looked at alternative advertising. For most of our advertising, we were focusing on criminal. We switched some of the keywords to focus more on domestic, more on bankruptcy, more on domestic, more on wills, things like that, because that's where people are more looking nowadays than they are for DUIs and criminal. And again, that has a lot to do with being sheltered at home, not driving. So we wanted to do that. And then I actually started an application for the DC bar because I'm barred in Maryland, but hey, wouldn't it increase my value if I can get into the DC bar? But I've looked into actually hiring folks who have that bar because I want to expand our outreach. If you are barred in New York and somebody comes to you from New Jersey and they say, well, can you help me with this New Jersey case? You want to be able to offer them that. You want to be able to keep that under one roof if you have a lawyer who works there, if you have the bar in New Jersey. So what we wanted to do is focus in on, again, serving more clients and being able to offer more to clients that we did serve. Loans. Let's talk about loans for a minute. There were a number of loans that you could apply for. There were grants that you could apply for in states. And as I mentioned, we suffered a downturn in business in that first week until I really focused on changing some things. But you still needed to have that protection. So what I did, and I didn't get all these, but I did apply for as many as I could, and I tried to be as quick as I could for the PPP, for the EIDL, that's a state disaster assistance. They had a grant program, and they also had a loan program. And I applied even for several other loans. Clio had a loan. I don't think I got that one, but I did apply. But it's good to apply for as many loans as you can. If you've not applied for the PPP, it's a really good idea to do it. But the one piece of advice I'll give you on that, make sure if you do get it, you set up a separate account. You want that loan to be forgivable. You want to use it only for the things that you need to sustain your business, because understand, that loan is only being provided for you if you meet certain qualifications, and if you're going to use it, it's only forgivable if you use it for the purposes of things such as your payroll. It has to be 75% of your payroll, and then 25% on other things such as your utilities, your rents. So if you have a separate account, it's going to make your accounting a lot better. COVID and crime. In Maryland, when the state placed restrictions with fewer arrests, the pivot was not completely away from criminal defense. There were certain cases that we wanted to focus on, and those were more of a domestic basis. So for example, when somebody is stuck at home, one of the things that they're dealing with is more domestic issues, domestic violence, protective orders, peace orders. We wanted to focus our advertising to go after that, as well as the bail reviews, the habeas corpus. We wanted to click our keywords, which were focused, as I mentioned, on the DUI and the criminal, to a different type of criminal. So just to stress that point, I didn't completely throw out criminal. I just pivoted the advertising within the criminal to those areas. But the balance, the areas we knew we wouldn't be able to do anything with, we pivoted that towards the areas where people were looking. And there's a little picture of David Schwimmer talking about pivot. We held a team meeting deciding that our solution to slow business would not be layoffs. One of the things I said was, I have a commitment to you as my team members, and we are going through harder times, but I'm not going to lay anybody off. And I just sort of made that a constitutional point for me, my constitution. I wasn't going to lay anybody off, because if you think about it, if you lay off your employee, you're going to have to go out, and then that person's going to have to go find another job. And eventually, when the spigot turns back on, when criminal cases, in our case, get put back into court, you're going to have all those cases, and you're going to have to handle those cases, plus the new calls that come in. Imagine when people start to go out to bars and start drinking and get into car accidents, get arrested. There's going to be a lot of cases coming in. And where will you be? You will be the firm that is struggling just to handle what you already have, because you don't have the same employees, because you looked at a short-term solution rather than at a long-term solution. So what I had said to all of my team members was that I was not going to lay anybody off, and I did not. We did cut back on some hours. We had to do that, but that was related to business need. If the phones aren't ringing as much, we wanted to have the business needs taken care of, but that did not mean laying people off. And also, just from a human perspective, all of my employees have their own families and their own needs, and I didn't want to be in a situation where I was literally putting somebody in a situation where they're relying on unemployment to live. I just, from the where I come from, and what I've always been taught, is just that you don't want to do that to somebody. You really want to be there for your employees. So I really wanted to be the guy who was there for them in tough times, and that's one of the reasons I did that. We decided to shift the focus. We looked at the new well in the family and bankruptcy. We decided to focus the bankruptcies, and not just Chapter 7s, which we had done some more on, but also Chapter 13s. So we were able to serve people who are struggling to pay their debt. And right now, what do you see the most of? People who don't have a plan for the future, people who don't know how to pay their debt, people who are having issues in their own families. So we focused on bankruptcy, and we even hired, or if that's the word, or affiliated with a family law of counsel, somebody who had 15 years in the business and family cases. So I had another hand on deck to focus on what I could do to build our family practice, because I said, look, There's going to be people who get divorces. There's going to be people who have troubles with family law. And if we can focus on that now and target our marketing to that now, and also bring in the personnel, I'll go back to that point, the personnel to handle it, then we're going to be able to serve those folks. By the 5th week, phones were back to ringing with much higher regularity, mostly in those other areas, family and bankruptcy. But guess what? We had people who were calling us with criminal matters. We had people who were calling us to pay off some of their bills. We had people who even had dates further down who wanted to know if their case was being affected by the court postponements. So what that did, it allowed us to reach out to them and connect with them and also get paid. So we started to see more and more clients making payments to us that we had thought would happen. So it was a situation where I refused to sit back and do nothing. The other thing that we did, and this, I have to give credit where it's due on this, a guy named Arjan Robbins, who runs How to Run a Small Law Firm. He gave one of the webinars. And I asked a question on one of the webinars, and I said, I do a lot of advertising. I've done broadcasts before. What do you think now about cutting back on advertising, particularly broadcast? And he said, I'd love to be any of your competitors. I said, what do you mean? He said, they're going to eat your lunch. I said, how's that? He said, right now, if you want to do advertising, you're likely to find better deals on advertising than you've probably ever seen, because so many firms are going to be cutting back. He said, if you look into advertising, you're going to have opportunities you never thought were there. And guess what? If you can get in at a lower rate, then you have a chance to do more later on, and you've already established that relationship, and it becomes relationship-based selling rather than you're Mr. Smith, you're whatever, here's how much we charge off a rate sheet. So I am actually this Monday going to have a TV ad out for divorce and for bankruptcy. And I got a really good deal on it because I followed that advice. I think really the main point in this about thriving, not just surviving, is go against the grain. Think about your long-term solution and not just the short-term solution. I think too many people struggle with the now rather than the where am I going. I think you have to have a plan. If you have a plan, in 5 years I want to be here. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was in another job, I was doing something else. I heard, I guess it's a Zig Ziglar seminar about writing down the things that you will have already accomplished and putting it in a drawer. My sort of where I'm going to be is going to visit Paris. I had never been to Paris at that time. And I said, my next year I will have already gone to Paris and had a great year at work and do a whole bunch of things. And I wrote down, I think, 10 things on that piece of paper, and I stuck it in a drawer. And number one on that list was I wanted to go to Paris. And sure enough, after that next year, I had gone to Paris for 14 days. It had a great year with a number of things. And it's all because I just had already motivated myself that I had to do the things that were on that list. So you want to have a plan. Where do you see yourself going in the next year? What's your plan for the next 3 months? What's your plan for the reopen? In our case, we've been looking to hire. And I say to people, look, we're going to have some kind of different arrangement because our revenues are not quite what they would be when the spigot's open. But it doesn't mean you can't start the process. Doesn't mean you can't start forming the relationships. Even if you can't pay them the salary they want now, doesn't mean you can't start forming the relationship. And one of our hires, that's exactly what I said to the hire. I said, look, right now we're actually in a cutting back hours mode, but maybe there's some things we could work out. And it's amazing what you can find if you just ask the questions and you get people to want to work with you. So we started to get more and more calls. We were recently approved for the PPP. And the one other thing I mentioned about the separate account, I couldn't even begin to use that until just a few days ago. So that's something that I think is a point. Before just a few days ago, and as I said, I could only use it for a limited number of things. I've actually not had a payroll with it yet. But I was able to at least get a little bit of help in that regard. We talked about the steakhouse approach earlier. And we talked about using all those resources together. I think the PPP loan is one of those options about when you talk about thriving and surviving, when you talk about making sure that you've covered your bases. All that's going to do is help you. You shouldn't be relying on that as just the only thing. We talked about over-serving your clients, and something I'll stress on this. When you go to the restaurant, when you go to somewhere where you have a waiter that you really like, that person's going to know the menu up and down. That person's going to ask you lots of questions up and down. That person's going to make suggestions. Okay, that's the waiter that you want to request every time you go in. If you are simply picking up the phone and saying, "Hi, what do you have? A divorce case? Okay, that's great. Let's set you up for a consultation." You want your staff to be doing the same things. You don't want them to be just that order taker. Because if it's just an order taker server who doesn't know anything about what's in the menu, the order taker server doesn't know anything about what exactly is going on, that's not a server you want to deal with. You probably won't go back to that restaurant. So I think as you put forth that menu of financial services that are going to help you grow, and as you do that outreach, you really want to make sure that your message is honed so that you know the message, you know what services, that your team knows the messages that you want to portray about the services you offer. We're a full service law firm. We can help you in any number of areas. If you can find a way to keep it all in-house, as I mentioned earlier, if you're a steakhouse but you still serve a salad, they're going to come back to that steakhouse because it's the experience. It's not just because they have good steaks. It's because when I go to that restaurant, it's the best experience that you have. And that's what your clients want to have when they go to your law firm. You heard about the book, The Client-Centered Law Firm. That's what you want to be. You want to be the law firm that makes it so your clients have the best experience. That doesn't mean you're always going to win. There could be very tough cases that your client is going to have trouble getting through, and maybe they're found guilty. It's certainly possible in criminal law. Maybe they don't get the custody order they were hoping for in family. Maybe the settlement figure is just that. It's a settlement figure. It's not quite what they wanted. But if the experience is that you prepare them for that, then that helps them tremendously. And you heard about doing the surveys and the pre-reviews. You can find that out by just reaching out to them. Revenue is not quite what it was beforehand, but at the same time, I think that we've made a lot of changes to what we're doing. The other thing that you've heard and that I really think is very, very important is having metrics. You want to be able to quantify what's going on. Every single phone call that comes into your law firm, particularly now, more than ever, you want to know where that phone call came from. If you don't have a metric to know what you're doing, where your clients are coming from, if you're working with a marketing partner, you want that marketing partner to be honed in. And don't be afraid to be a pest to them. Don't be afraid to call them and email them regularly, because they need to be on top and invested in your business as you're invested with them. If you're spending money on pay-per-click, you want to know that that pay-per-click is being updated. You want to know that it's going into the right places. If you're just spending money and letting somebody go out and place it wherever they feel like, it may not be doing what you're hoping it would do. You also want to be very, very conscious, particularly now. And again, this goes back to the negotiating. You want to go back and say, what is the rate that you're charging me to place that pay-per-click? You know, how much money are you charging me? How much percentage of that ad that you're buying from Google or wherever it is? You want to try to get those numbers to be as low as possible, and you offer them the option of volume. Something else I did as far as making important decisions is I called up different vendors, and I wanted to see who would offer me a discount on certain things. I found out that our phone service, for example, I was paying more than I would like. So we're actually going to be switching to a different VoIP provider for our phone service. And that happened through doing the investigation. That happened through a review of all of our expenses. I think you really have to take a look at what you're spending money on now and seeing what you can cut out Because as I said, if you make that commitment to your employees, it doesn't mean you can't be more efficient. It doesn't mean you can't find cuts that you can make. Another thing was for any auto deductions, money that would come out, I took my vendors off of auto pay. They couldn't just run my credit card or run an ACH. They had to speak with me first. And I think that helped a lot, because I found the vendors that really wanted me to stay with them offered me discounts. And the vendors that just said our policy is whatever, I literally have cut or am cutting all but one of them. And I think, and that particular vendor just does a very, very good job. But I've cut vendors that weren't willing to be sympathetic. We have to be sympathetic to our client. I can only put X down, but I'll be able to work with you. Work with them. When the client comes in the door, you really need to convert them into a paying client. I want to, before I take some questions, which will be the next thing, I want to just relay a couple points and sort of just sum up a bit. You cannot go into this crisis with an attitude of, I'm just going to try to get through these next couple months and I hope I can survive. That can't be your attitude. You have to wake up every single morning and have an attitude that I'm going to make today the best possible day it can be. I'm going to do something awesome today. And I think you need to set a routine. That really worked for me. That was very helpful. Getting up at 6 in the morning, whatever, to do yoga every day. Granted, it was in my house, wasn't at a studio. Maybe you work out, maybe you go for a run. Do that at the start of the day. Get that accomplished. This comes from Robert Herjavec, who's on Shark Tank. He was at a seminar that I was at over, I guess 6-7 months ago, something like that. And he said, I run every single day. I work out every single day. He said, I feel that no matter what else happens the rest of the day, I've accomplished something that day. So that really is something that I think will help you. It'll help you find balance in your life. So I would highly recommend you start off your day with some sort of physical activity. Another thing that I think is really important is meditation and self-care. We had a webinar earlier this week that I was on, and a psychologist came on and talked about how important self-care is and how important it is to meditate and really get yourself to a place. Because if you are in a place of peril, you're worried about the sun coming up the next day and you think the world is going to end, you are projecting that to your clients. People, 80% of communication, may even be 85%, is nonverbal. Okay, now it's, I guess, a little different because we're wearing masks some of the times. But in general, that's the metric. And if you're exuding that feeling that the world is going to end, your clients or prospective clients are going to have that attitude when they talk to you over the phone, when they meet you. So you really want to project that sort of winning attitude that, you know, I am going to accomplish something great today. I'm going to help some people today, even if it's a little thing. You know, I have a bill review today. I'm going to fight my butt off because I know how hard that is for that family. And for all of our other lawyers, I say to them, have that same winning attitude. So you start the day and then you go in knowing that you're planning to accomplish something that day. So do that, take care of yourself, eat right. Again, these aren't specific law pieces of advice, but there's some things that are really going to help you. If you do those things and you focus on the long term, not the short term, what you're going to do is let yourself thrive. You're going to let yourself be the attorney who's really going to do some awesome things. And our law firm is growing and growing. We were actually named the 5th fastest growing law firm in the country by Law Firm 500. And I don't like to wave my own flag, and that was obviously before the COVID crisis. But it's from doing things and having sort of the drive to grow and to be able to help more people and just be focused on your clients. With that, I'll be happy to take some questions.
Back on with you, Thomas. I'll tell you, I love that presentation. There were so many nuggets in there that have taken me years and years to collect that you condensed in such a short period of time. So that's awesome.
Thanks, Chris. I try.
Yeah, no, you did a great job. So a couple questions here. First one is, what marketing should you run from now?
The marketing you should run from anything that relies on people to be in cars. So radio, as much as I like radio, and I'm going to give a shout out to one radio station, did something really nice for me, but it's really not where people are right now. That being said, we talked about gas calls. Adams Radio, which is one of the main radio providers on the Eastern Shore, they actually sent me an email and said, hey, Tom, would you be interested in a free spot that we're doing for local businesses to help them out during this crisis? It's going to cost you $75 for production, and then we'll put the ad on. Now, I signed up for that. I didn't figure I'd get much from it, but it does get the word out. And the great thing for them is I'm going to remember that, because at a time where there are a lot fewer people out doing things, this is one radio station that reached me. So I wouldn't pay for the ads right now, but in that unique instance, that's a company I'm going to remember. I do billboards. I am running from them now in the sense that I'm putting a pause on my billboard campaigns, because I don't want to put them up when there's just not people driving. I'm going to wait until the stay-at-home orders are relaxed, so there's people out. Then we're going to start the campaigns, and my vendors were generally very good about that.
Awesome. Let me check the list here. Just be right back with you.
Okay.
What lender did you end up using for PPP?
M&T Bank, they were phenomenal to deal with. I've heard horror stories about a lot of banks. What I have found is that the smaller banks, the local banks, have been very good, because they're going to treat you with more of a, kid gloves. But if you do all of your banking or most of it with a big bank, and M&T is a big bank, they're based in Buffalo, they're in New York, they're in Baltimore. The Ravens Stadium is M&T Bank Stadium. They really treated me like a client they wanted to keep. Not that I was thinking of leaving, but they really treated me well. So I was happy with them. But I also think that there's been some banks that have just not treated their customers very well. So maybe the smaller banks might be a way to go, particularly as they expound the PPP, because there's a second round of it now, I believe.
Gotcha. So then the next one is, when you pivot, is there a way you can also prepare for reopening?
Yes. What I think is that the pivot is actually a road you can still travel. Think about a fork in the road where there's two roads, and the one road is the one you've been traveling, and we'll call that criminal defense. And that's ultimately going to lead you where you're going. But then the second road says family, or it says estate planning or employment law. You're not, even if that's the road you take to get to your destination, even if you didn't take the criminal road, it's still a workable road. There's still people who go back and forth on that road. So why not do both? Why not expand what you're doing? And while you're focusing on the second road right now, wouldn't it be great if you could invest your assets in both as you reopen? Because then you've essentially taken that menu and said, by the way, our salads are pretty good. You know Ken's Steakhouse that does the salad dressings? They're actually a steakhouse in Massachusetts. If there are those of you on the call from Massachusetts, you know that. But they became known for their salad dressings because they were so good at that. Suppose you can be that good at employment law and not just about steaks. I hear they have pretty good steaks too. I've never been to the Cape Cod restaurant, but I'd like to go just to say I've tried their steaks.
Gotcha. So what cuts other than staff hours did you make, and what cost savings did you find as you sought to reduce your overhead going into the crisis?
I found things that were duplicative, and I found things that I was just simply being overcharged. Here's the perfect example. I used LawPay for my payments, and I was paying a monthly fee for it. As it turns out, Clio is a preferred provider for LawPay, and I use Clio Manage, and I found out that I was paying for that and didn't need to. So Clio, because Clio covers it. So LawPay went ahead and turned that off, and I think I'm getting some credit because I got that through Clio. So that was one example of something being duplicative. Another example was I use Fastcase for legal research. Fastcase is provided through a number of bar associations, including the MSBA. And I found that I was paying some sort of monthly fee for something I was already getting for free. And again, you don't know this unless you really dig in and do the research to see what services are covered and not. So they went ahead and credited me back, I think, 130, 140 bucks. Look, it's not a comfortable conversation to go to somebody and ask for a credit or refund, but sometimes you have to do it. And in this case, they said, look, we're just glad you're using our product. So it was a very nice conversation with them. And, you know, they wanted me to write a review. I'd write a great review.
Awesome. Well, I think that wraps it up for the questions that we have right now. Again, thank you very much for all the knowledge that you plugged into that short period of time. That was awesome.
Thanks, Chris. You guys do a great job. And this is really just an awesome presentation because getting so many great ideas. I've already written down a ton just from what I've heard being here.
Awesome. Well, we'll move on to our next speaker. Thanks again, Thomas. I appreciate you coming today. So our next speaker actually is a pair of speakers with Philip Miller and Camille Moore. Philip Miller is the founder of Miller's Law, a law firm with a reputation for being trial warriors specializing in personal injury, divorce law, and criminal defense. Prior to starting his legal career, Mr. Miller was a combat officer with operational experience around the world and the recipient of elite level training in many NATO countries, including psychological operations, information warfare, sniper training, and strategic planning, to name a few. He began his legal career in his 30s as a prosecutor and later joined a large firm before deciding to start his own law firm, which he built from the ground up into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. He currently runs his law firm and marketing company that assists professionals who need to adapt to a rapidly changing business landscape. Philip is joined by Camille Moore. Camille is the director of Birdeye Insights, Inc., a digital marketing agency that also specializes in communication and PR. Camille has an honors specialization degree in English language and literature from Western University and received her marketing training at Harvard University. Camille specializes in marketing for professional corporations, as she originally aspired to become a lawyer. During her undergrad, she interned at a law firm where she quickly took control of the firm's marketing and began making a huge impact to the firm's bottom line. It was here that she found her love for marketing and what led her to build the company she runs today. Camille has also acted as director of marketing for a major cannabis company, a law firm as a director, and is now the founder of Birdeye Insights, a successful marketing company servicing North American companies. Camille, welcome.
Thank you.
You bet. Is Philip on?
I'm on.
Okay, awesome. Well, welcome to both of you. I'm going to depart the screen. There you go. Awesome. I'm going to depart the screen and let you take over.
All right. Camille will share her presentation. So hello, everybody. My name is Philip Miller, as the introduction said, and I know we're playing cleanup here on 3 presentations, and it's a lot of information being thrown at you quickly, and I thank the other presenters for what they shared. In our talk here, you're going to find, first of all, I don't speak like most lawyers. I'm considered a bit of a rogue, but I will share a lot of practical tips that I've experienced as an entrepreneur, somebody who created a law firm, and somebody who kind of stays on top of tech tools and trends. To start off with kind of a theme, I might disagree with Thomas a bit, and I think disagreement is good, right? I think we are not a product industry. I think we're a credence industry. I think we are sold on a different criteria than a steak, let's say. But in this crisis, just as a context, so you guys know you're getting something different. When this COVID crisis started, I made one cut early and fast, and I did cut staff because I knew I had to get lean. I knew I had gotten fat, sloppy, and I was just taking advantage that old things would keep working. So I did a deep dive into my business, cut what I didn't need because I needed to protect the whole organization and the other employees. But at the same time that I cut people, I would have borrowed money to advertise, because this time period right now is the single biggest opportunity you have in your legal profession to capture market space, because everybody is huddling and scared and trying to find ways out. and there's silence. And so I actually doubled or tripled my marketing budget during this time. And our phones are ringing off the hook. One of the reasons I got to this place after struggling in my first 5 years to figure out how to get a law firm going is when I met Camille. She became our director of marketing, and she has single-handedly transformed our law firm into a really well-known and high-performing modern law firm. She was the stimulus that made me adopt tech tools that I'd wanted to do for a while. And so she's going to be a great asset. And I'll let her introduce herself now.
Hi, my name is Camille Moore. Can everybody hear me? Philip, can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. So hi, I'm Camille Moore. I own Birdeye Insights, a marketing and communications and PR agency located in Toronto, but we service all of North America. I am a strong believer in tech, and I think that it is super important for the legal industry to adopt it as an extremely old profession that has gone unchanged for a very long time. The time is now to modernize and to start looking at modern programs and technologies to change your business so that you can compete and stay relevant in 2020, especially post-COVID-19, which has created a new normal and what that's going to look like. So this presentation is going to cover that, the 5 big tech tools that you need to consider moving forward in order to survive post-COVID-19.
So the reason why we started with this particular quote in this slide is that lawyers are famous for being slow adapters. If anybody's read the Gladwell book, we're not early adapters. Essentially, the profession has stayed relatively the same for a century, right? We're not quite wearing wigs anymore, but you go into any variety of courthouses around the world and it's painfully prehistoric. But the pillars of servicing clients are still true. We still have to be people who have authority, who are respected and have credibility, but the communication channels have changed. As Tom said, billboards might not be the best way. Yellow pages certainly aren't. And so there is a strong connection between technology tools and marketing and strategy, and you can't deviate from them if you're going to be relevant in the future.
Exactly. And law is a credence profession, which Philip touched on in the slide previous. Credence professions are ones that are highly respected. They're obviously also very hard to achieve. You had to go through a ton of schooling to be able to become a lawyer. And the amount of information that you hold for the past century, prior to the advent of Google, was something that was held exclusively with lawyers. So within a credence profession, there are 3 pillars, which are the 3 R's, which Thomas also touched on as well. Those are relationships, referrals, and reputations. That's how you build business, that's how you sell business, and these are the 3 pillars that should also ring true in your marketing plan and your strategy. But outside of just your marketing, these need to be embedded in your overall business plan and strategy, which is what Philip was just touching on. Is modern marketing is no longer a siloed aspect of the business. It stretches and touches all areas of the business because it is the entire client experience. We now live in a world where reviews are paramount. They're how people make buying decisions. So if your client's experience from the beginning to the end is not exceptional, you're going to get a bad review, which touches marketing. So that's why marketing, or modern marketing, extends throughout the entire business, and why, 1, it's integral, but 2, it doesn't need to cost a fortune to have great marketing. If it's done right and it's done strategically and it's built in through the right tech platforms, you will be able to make money off your marketing and be able to compete.
Hey, did you refer the expungement to Shauna?
Hey, Tom, we can still hear you, buddy.
Oh, because it was a conviction? Yeah, you're right then. Okay. All right, thanks.
Chris, maybe you can mute Tom. I think his mic's still hot. Well,
Got it. Sorry about that.
No problem. So you may get the impression that my military background kind of impacted my approach to law, and it caused me some problems at the beginning because I was pushing against conventional wisdom, and lawyers like conventional wisdom. But anybody who's on this call instinctively knows that there's something that they need to do, that there's opportunity here, and they really legitimately want to help their business and help their clients. And this expands on credence. Like you can put up a billboard, people will get to know your name, but it's not necessarily building a relationship with them. And Camille had given us a good example. If United put up a billboard one day, but then the next day they had that video of them ripping the passenger off the plane, the billboard's not effective anymore. And we're in an economy that has a much faster pace of operations. And because we're a credence profession, we have to create a channel of communications with clients who trust us, who know that we'll tell them the truth, and who can rely on us and find us, right? And so in a crisis, who is gonna be a voice of reason? So are we gonna be lawyers who go and hide in our offices and shut down? Like, we have to be right now getting our voice out there, telling people, hey, this is gonna be okay. This can do. We have to give free advice. And I know people hate the idea of giving free advice, but we had created a policy that was Camille's recommendations. We put out some notes saying all of my lawyers will answer calls before we go home from anybody about any COVID question, because people are scared. Who are they going to call, right? Everybody on the TV is talking about stuff, but people are worried about their job. So we're just there trying to help as many people as possible, because after the crisis, that's going to pay off tremendously.
And to further touch on that point about the billboard, the reason why a billboard is no longer enough is when somebody sees a billboard, they're going to their phone to research the brand or research the name of that law firm. When they do their research, if you don't have a mobile-friendly website, if you don't have reviews, and if you don't have socials, that billboard isn't doing anything for you. So you have to vertically integrate your marketing efforts to have modern marketing mediums included in it. Because if you're only focused on traditional mediums, you're throwing your money out the window. And to Philip's point about offering the free information during COVID-19 and being a voice of reason speaks to the legal profession as being a credence profession. You guys are highly respected members of society, you're educated, and your opinion matters. Especially in Ontario specifically, Philip's law firm offers family law, which the courts were shut down. So it was a very scary time for families that were either going through family proceedings or have court orders for when their children can see their other parents. All of these things created a huge sense of fear. So being able to have access to a law firm that's answering your questions on a platform like Facebook was huge for Miller's Law by reinforcing that credence profession. So this slide, I just wanted to be able to take a minute to offer a warning, but also provide you guys with the ability, or where we're going to be going with this is a lot of people get super excited. We're going to be teaching you guys about social media. We're going to be teaching you guys about really cool platforms like Clio, how Emma already spoke about it, or Birdeye, which is a great review platform. But outside of these platforms, you want to make sure that you have the time to invest in the onboarding of new tech. Tech is expensive, tech can take a lot of time, and you want to make sure that you're, one, willing to put in the time, but two, you're also putting in the time before you sign up for a contract to ensure that it's the right service for you. There's a ton of services on the internet that all offer the same thing. They often vary in price and a few services, which is something that Thomas also touched on as well. You just want to make sure that you're putting in the time before you invest in anything, especially if tech is something that's new to you. And Philip, you had
I have a personal anecdote here, and Camille was a catalyst to get me to adopt tech. But when I started, I realized early, Clio was actually started in British Columbia. And when it first came out, I think it was in my second year of owning my own firm, I wanted to take it on. But I had staff that were overworked. I was doing everything myself. So I had great intentions. I thought my first personality could take it on, but it ended up being a disaster because I didn't invest the time. I didn't give my staff the tools to do it. And it ended up costing me thousands. I had a staff member quit. And then I had to go back to this legacy piece of crap software that I hated. And so I think what Camille's saying is, we don't want you to be overwhelmed by people just laundry listing tons of different techs. There's a lot of very skilled salespeople that will convince you have to adopt everything. You want to adopt something that's proven and that will actually help you. And I think our main point today is this COVID crisis provides an amazing opportunity for you not to work just in your business, but to work on your business. So this is the time to figure out what works for you, get it in there, and then when we come out of it, you'll be miles ahead.
Exactly. This is just our way of giving you a warning to make sure that you're ready to invest in the tech. It's hard to speak because I haven't been speaking to people during COVID-19, so bear with me.
First time I ever heard that. All right, so this slide, everybody is dealing with stress. We are as business owners, our staff are, our family are, society is. I don't think we're getting accurate data in some cases, but the world's not going to end. The beautiful thing about every crisis is that they happen regularly and they always end. So we need, as intelligent people, to say, okay, we know this is going to end. How are we going to come out of this? What my takeaway from this crisis, as somebody who's been in a few stressful situations, is that it's not going to change the world, but it's really going to accelerate the adoption of technology. And what think of 2 months before COVID, some of the courthouses were just prehistorically slow. Now all of a sudden we're starting to do video conferencing, appearances. So what we thought was going to be the pace of technological adoption is now going to be accelerated 5 or 10-fold. So you guys, we need to get ahead of that curve so we can beat our competition and keep our employees going. But just don't panic, think, invest, and I think it'll be all right, and Camille's going to tell you how.
So the landscape was changing pre-COVID-19. So my assumption is that it's only going to continue to change post-COVID-19. And this is going to apply to the traditional marketing mediums, as Thomas already pointed to. For example, print marketing was already on the decline. Radio has had a declining in listenerships over the past 5 years, especially with the advent of Spotify, Sirius, Apple Music, or just general streaming apps that people choose to listen to instead of the radio when they're in their car while driving or at home. The traditional mediums that were on the decline before are going to continue to be on the decline post-COVID-19. But on top of that, if you were already investing in that and you are still deciding to invest in that post-COVID-19, the way that needs to look also has to change. You're going to be seeing a lot of modern approaches to print marketing or print material, which is going to include QR codes, like that code that Emma showed at the end of her presentation, or tags to socials, or calls to actions in the advertisements that drive consumers onto online platforms, like links, instead of calling or emailing directly in the ad. If you are not utilizing or leveraging modern media or modern marketing practices, you're going to be forgotten. You're going to be lost, and you're going to lose to your competition. People are utilizing their cell phones as well as their desktops to make purchasing decisions for services. It's proven in the data, even if you are using traditional marketing mediums, like how we had talked about with the anecdote of the billboard. If you are not leveraging reviews on social media, have a mobile-friendly website, you are not going to be found, and you are going to be lost. The biggest takeaway that I want to communicate is the importance of value and information marketing. As I talked about being a credence profession and how people are leaning on professionals to provide them information, you need to be at the forefront of that. People want to see valuable social media content. And that is the biggest shift that has already been happening, but that needs to continue to happen or be implemented in your business if you want to continue to survive.
And stay tuned for Camille when she talks about social media, because she has beautiful stories about how people waste hours and thousands on useless Instagram posts.
Exactly. These are the 5 tech tools we're going to break down individually, and social media is going to be one of them that are non-negotiable that you have to implement. The way in which you implement them is where that warning came in, is take the time to now learn about these programs. Don't leave this presentation and get all excited about a software or a SaaS, which is a service to the software, or social media. Take the time to learn about this, or to figure out where you want this to fit into your timeline. You may be not able to fit in all 5 of these at once, but what are the most important, and what you're going to phase in first, so you're ensuring that you're applying the right amount of time to each program. So the first one is a website, which I know Emma also talked about as well, but I want to take some time to talk about this because websites are so important. They are your base camp for all of your business operations and branding. It's your business card on the internet. It's where your brand needs to be true, needs to be strong, and it needs to be represented in the way that you would want to view it if you were a customer. So think about the way that you experience a website. How do you go on either the heading tabs? How do you view the website? What text areas do you read? What's important to you on a website? That's what you need to be thinking about when you go back and see your website. If your website's not mobile friendly, if it doesn't have a contact feature, a blog feature, a chat box feature, you probably are needing to have an update. So the 3 main pillars I want to talk about today are functionality, optimization, and ensuring that you have a website that you can update frequently. So a functional website has there's multiple facets to that. So the first thing is you want to make sure that it's user friendly. It's not inundated with information. It's easy to read. It explains and it provides the appropriate information for a customer to make their buying decision. You want to make sure that it's optimized. So this might sound a little high level, but you want to ensure that you're working with a team or a developer that understands search engine optimization so that your website can be found on the internet. Google, the #1 search engine, hides the algorithm in which someone can rank on the top page, but there's a bunch of features or suggestions that are laid out in order for you to achieve first, second, third, fourth page search engine results. So one, it obviously depends on the area in which you're in and the saturation of the area. You want to ensure that your website has the proper HTML coding. You want to ensure it has the right services on the back end. So that is Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, Google Site Speed, Facebook Pixel, as well as ensuring that your website is mobile friendly. Your developer should know all of these things, but you want to take the time to get a base understanding of these 3 pillars so that when you are hiring someone to build a website, you understand, at least in just what you're looking for the website to achieve. You don't want to spend a ton of money on a website and it's not designed or optimized for Google, because then you're going to be on page 47 and that's where dead bodies hang out. The last pillar is the ability to update it frequently. So this means you want your website to be built on a CSM opposed to a custom code website. The reason for this is you don't want to rely on a developer to have to update your website for you. You want to have someone in your office, whether it's yourself or a support member, who understands how to upload a blog or make small tweaks to a website. So for example, for Phillips Law Firm, we did a quick banner that just provided information for clients that Miller's Law is open during COVID-19. They're servicing clientele, and they're available for questions. Whatever questions that someone wants to send forward, to please send it to an email listed below. That was able to be done quickly because it was a CSM website and we didn't have to wait for a developer to go in and do that. Blogs are also extremely, extremely important for SEO, which is search engine optimization. Being able to update blogs yourself, again, you're not relying or paying for a developer to update blogs if you don't have to. You should have a team that's doing this for you, because outsource when it's time to outsource, but the ability to do it yourself allows you to not be reliant on a developer. The next is social media. So as Philip was saying, the most frustrating conversation that I have frequently is clients say they're doing social media because somebody is posting a one-dimensional graphic. These are often the same people who see zero value or monetary value in social media. That's because social media has to be tied to strategy. You have to ensure that there's KPIs in place. It's going to be tied to some kind of metric that you can track sales or data so that your marketing is actually contributing to your bottom line. Like anything else, you need to be working with professionals. You can have someone at the office that is doing it. You can also hire an agency, but it needs to be backed by strategy. Otherwise, it's useless and you're throwing your money out the window. Posting graphics about Happy Easter and Merry Christmas, or a funny graphic that talks about the legal profession, is not tied to making you business or bringing in business. So this is where I'm very passionate about it, because if it's done well, it can do a lot for your business by way of marketing and advertising. So to
Can I
the right
jump in
here,
there, Camille, just before?
yes,
One of the things lawyers, and I might be a more risk tolerant lawyer, but we all, like, lawyers are kind of risk adverse, right? And then putting yourself on video, we're harsh on ourselves, right? And so you have to get over yourselves. You have to make content. And I just remember Camille nonstop saying, make more videos, do another video, get the product out there. And then cumulatively, it works beautifully. But we have to get over ourselves in order to reach our clients who are hungry for what we have to say, and they're not hearing it because we're too sensitive about looking like amateurs.
exactly. The video post, the second one of these two posts, is a screenshot of an Instagram post we did of Philip talking about martial law, which was being talked about on social media platforms about potentially being something that would be put into effect by the Canadian government. This is a part of long-term marketing. So this wouldn't be tied to something immediate like the first post is. But this, again, works into that point of the credence profession that I talked about earlier. Being a voice of reason and information on the internet speaks to Thomas's point about being a thought leader in your space. Talk about the things that other people aren't talking about, because they're going to receive this information from somewhere. If someone is afraid that martial law is going to be instituted, be the video that they click on. Don't let them find another article on the internet or another blog post. Be that voice. Even if it's not yourself that you're putting in front of the camera, Philip also has his support staff, his associates, his law clerks. They all do videos. It also helps to put a familiar face to either a potential client or a client when they're walking into a law firm. They start to know every member of the law firm and know their unique personalities based off of their presence on the social media platforms. The first post, the Ask the Expert Live Q&A, was an initiative we put together quickly. We did some graphics. We started to create hype. We boosted the graphics, which creates native content. So quickly, the difference between an advertisement and a native content is native content doesn't appear as an ad. It's boosted on Facebook so that it shows up on a certain demographic that you selects feed, but it's not an ad in the same way that if you see a Facebook ad for Tostitos and it's very clearly advertising a Tostitos bag. This graphic is obviously different. It's native. It doesn't seem like an ad in the same way. What we did as an agency is we created all of these graphics, we posted them on the internet, and we boosted them. We also prepared the lawyers with pre-designed questions in case nobody showed up. The response was huge. There were so many people that showed up, so many questions, that we ended up doing another 3 after this event. And this was tied to immediate business. So there's ways for there to be short-term business and long-term business if social media is done effectively. The biggest thing is exactly what Philip said. You have to get over yourself and you have to post videos on the internet. Nobody likes it, but it works. And especially in your profession where people are looking and yearning for professional advice and information in a world of fake news, be the right video or the right blog post that somebody clicks on. Blogs that are not featured in here are also a major part of Miller's Law's social media plan. Blogs also do really well on socials. Again, we use it as native content. So we'll write a blog post, but a pressing article in the news, or an opinion piece, or something unrelated but is specific to law.
Yeah. And when we do blogs, one of the things, because I can write decently, we can all write, but we're all taught to write to impress lawyers. I don't give a crap what lawyers think about me, right? I want my clients to know. So when I have my associates writing blogs, I have to tell them, stop writing like you want to impress your professor, right? Think that you're writing to the average you know, a red state voter or whoever. Like, you have to write in a way that people can consume quickly and understand, and it has to have an element of controversy. And lawyers are terrified to say anything interesting because we're risk adverse. But I am proof positive that I get out there and say things that matter, that are rooted in truth, and you have to say it in a way. So take what you learned in law school about communicating, put that away and save that for the appeal courts. Think about what your clients want to hear. I can't see my kids this weekend because my wife says because I'm still working, I'm a danger. Okay, that's now what's the answer to that? You know, be authentic and genuine. And the beauty of social media and the beauty of the plan that we did with Camille and now we're doing with other law firms is it is an order of magnitude faster in terms of reaching people. Think of the old ways, how you would reach people, but now a story can come out today. I can think about my potential client base, and by tomorrow, I've got a relevant post out there that people are sharing. I'm getting a call from a newspaper, but it's because I have the courage to get out there. And you know, we're not lawyers because of our looks, we're lawyers because of our thinking and our ability to communicate. So don't worry about the videos, just say something interesting.
And a stat I read yesterday is Facebook has been the #1 source of news where people have consumed news during COVID-19. And that blog post topic that Philip just brought up when he was just speaking is a perfect example of the kinds of things that people click on. It's clickbait. It's what the average person is thinking and is worried about. Maybe they haven't been told that they can't see their kids yet, but it's something that's on their mind. And that puts your brand top of mind. And if you are investing in other mediums, like traditional mediums, it again reinforces your marketing by vertically integrating your efforts.
Start thinking dynamically and out of the box. So we do personal injury and medical malpractice as well. And then when I heard that there was a shortage of PP&E for our frontline workers, it infuriated me. But, you know, I just didn't go tell my buddies, you know, my lawyer buddies. I made a post saying it's absolutely irresponsible that hospitals don't have enough masks for people. And if managers don't get them the masks, I will come and sue you. Right? And so what did I do? I made huge loyalties with nurses. Nurses are a great source of medical malpractice cases later. It cost me $200 and we got, I think, 15,000 views just from that one post. Like you get so much more impact for so much less money if you do the right digital marketing.
And that's a great point that I do want to end the slide on. Social media marketing is so inexpensive compared to traditional marketing mediums that it's a really great way to gather data for what works for your industry, for your network, and for your area, as well as just being able to test out digital marketing. It's not a big commitment. You can try with one blog post or 2 weeks of posting and spend $20 per post on it. That's nowhere near the cost of radio or print advertising. So it's very, very inexpensive. It's a low barrier to entry, and the payoff is huge.
Really, we could have done a whole presentation just on that. But
So
the last
true.
thing before I go to the next slide, if you are a bit shy about posting or putting yourself out there, people think social media is just posting images, as Camille said, but it's also commenting, making commentary or whatever, sound like Trump. So what you can do is find discussion boards, and then what I started doing on Camille's recommendation is I spent 20 minutes a day just finding topics that were relevant to my business and finding other people talking about it. And then I started making comments on it, and then people started responding to me if they liked what I said. So that's kind of a baby step way to start that. And I think Gary Vee suggests the same type of model. Anyhow, practice management software. This is important to us now. And the reason I think why it's important, as I said earlier, this is the time to get yourself organized and to work on your business, not in your business. I had been using up until about a year ago the same software from when I opened up my own business 10 years ago, and we all hated it. The staff hated it. It was laborious. We couldn't get proper reports, but it was just suggested to us. So this is you might call it a tech tool, but it's actually a tool to run a business. Now, in law school, there was never a course at law school on how to run a business, how to balance your books, how to market. So we kind of come out of law school thinking we're going to make a bunch of money, and then nobody's given us the tools to help. And then either we go to a big firm, which tells us, just grind the client's bill as much as possible, we'll take care of it. But I'm assuming a lot of us are sole proprietors, small businesses, medium law firms. Having the right practice management software, I believe, is fundamental. Since I made the switch, my ability to track metrics, to see who's actually working, to make better decisions decisions have gone through the roof. I will disclose that I'm in love with Clio. I couldn't get it on board before. I've now got it on board. My ability of all of my staff to work from home, to work in a courthouse, to work in Starbucks. I can open my phone and see exactly how much we billed yesterday, last week, who's on target, who's not on target. You need to invest in that. The problem that we run into, and I'm sure every one of you has in some way, is we have very capable support staff who were trained decades ago. And it's impossible to run our law firm without them. But I can think of about 3 in my firm. When you suggest changing to a new thing, you think they're going to run from you. So you have to have that leadership to experience the pain to get this running, but it will transform your business. Clio is up to date. It integrates with everything, and we got Clio Grow and Clio Manage. And as an owner, Clio Grow is one of the best things I've ever worked with in the legal profession. We're listing this as a tech tool, but it's really it's a technological approach to your business. So you have to have a synergized support system. And Emma was talking about how Clio works with a lot of other suites. It's true. And Camille was talking about it earlier, that you don't have stovepipes of business, right? I have a marketing section here. I have a file management system here. I have this here. The modern lawyer has to operate at a faster pace of operation. And so your entire system has to be integrated. And unfortunately, sometimes we just kind of fall into a system when we start, and it's too hard to move from. So in our firm, for example, I use G Suite, which allows me to store some documents, calendar, task, do some meetings. Clio works beautifully with it. We moved recently during this COVID crisis. We got off of a traditional VoIP and we went to Nextiva, which essentially allows anybody to call from your office on the cell phone. It allows you to record them. It's an amazing tool. All of my staff resisted it. I insisted, and now everybody loves it. And video conferencing. Zoom, you can record video. You can record video on Zoom. So I can do a client consult, and then if I want to get retainer, I can say, just confirm you want to hire me. I record it, and I've got a nice record there, even if I'm taking instructions. So whatever you're doing in this time period, always ask the right questions or speak to an expert who can help make sure that you're synergized and it can all work together.
And quickly, I want to make a quick point on this slide, and to Philip's point, think about the best services that you've been to and where they've used really innovative techniques, approaches, or services throughout your journey with them that really wowed you. That's often either a tech tool or an integration that improved your experience with them from a marketing/sales perspective. Once you're brought in from that initial advertisement or referral, your entire experience from beginning to end shapes the customer's journey. And that's where we're discussing these different tech tools, especially video conferencing. That's an added touch that a lot of law firms don't offer. That is a wow factor. And where do you really fit that into the business? Is that marketing? Is that operations? Is that what is that? And that's where we're talking about this kind of as big picture, and where either doing your research or hiring someone to do consulting to come in and to help you and find the right programs and tools for you is paramount.
And I want to build on Tom's talk. If you just go back, Tom talked about how to keep good people, and so we're experiencing. Okay, we have people who have a lot of experience who are older, but they're going to retire at some point. And the reason why we came up with this approach to moving forward with a tech platform is a lot of great people aren't going to want to subscribe to the 9 to 5. I'm going to drive 50 minutes in traffic, park, then go into an office for 9 to 5. Some will, but we want to attract top talent. And so there are now millennials and top talent that want to get up early, do some work, then put their kids on the bus, then do some work. And having a properly synergized support system that allows a kick-ass clerk to work from home. And what we found is some of our clerks are actually way more productive, the right people, having this flexibility. So in the end, it's going to help you keep people. It's going to help you move faster. And working with Clio that integrates with Google Calendar, Google Email, and a phone system, we found 20% more dockets that we were leaving. So because it's synergized, if I get a phone call on Nextiva, which is linked to Clio, Clio tracks it, I put the matter number in, I docket it. If I send an email, it goes into Clio, it dockets it. Even the Zoom chats in the meeting. So just by introducing this, we found 20% more dockets that were being lost by lawyers, not deliberately, but just because they were too busy. And this is our last tech tool. And Camille actually got me to adopt Birdeye because I was resisting it at the beginning. And maybe Camille, you can tell me give me the pitch you gave me to convince me to go to Birdeye, and then I'll talk about how amazing it is.
Absolutely. So reviews are the #2 way that users or potential clients determine which professional service they are going to use. #1 is referral based, but once you go through that referral based channel, or if you're not going through a referral based channel, the second place you're going is to reviews. You are, or for the most part, putting your life in the hands of a lawyer or a doctor or even a professor. And during my undergrad, I would do reviews as to what professors were the best as far as grades go. I was concerned about grad school. People look to reviews when they're trying to make a decision when it comes to a professional service. Birdeye is a great program that streamlines reviews so that you don't have to do it. Outsource when it's time to outsource. If you're giving your clients a 5-star experience, that needs to exist on the internet. Sadly, for services that don't prioritize reviews, the majority of reviews they have are negative because people only leave negative reviews if they had a really bad experience. If you're prompting people to leave a review, like a program like Birdeye, there's a higher incentive for the people that had a 5-star experience to leave that on the internet. And that pays huge dividends for your company long-term. So that's the pitch I sold to Miller's Law years ago. We didn't implement Birdeye right away. It was a super old school model where the secretary was asking people to leave a review. If Philip spoke to them personally, he'd be asking them as well to please leave a review. And we got a lot of reviews, but by nowhere close to how many we got when it was automated for the law firm.
So we were kind of ahead of the curve in that we were getting, it's not hard, I think, to have the most reviews in your area because lawyers don't like to ask for reviews generally. And there are some people who create fake reviews, that's not us, but anecdotally, I live in a city that borders on the United States. And so I went into a parcel pickup location, really nice people. And I said, hey, thanks very much. I took the parcel. And then when I left, I got a text message that said, click here to leave a review. And then I left them a great review. And then I remember asking Camille, how did they do this? And we couldn't figure it out. So I actually think Birdeye should consider hiring Camille because it should have been easier to find you back then because we were struggling. And then when Camille found it and pitched it to me, I'm like, that's that software I saw years ago that I wanted. And it's not just a review setup. And I'm not saying this because I'm on a Birdeye sponsored talk, because if it sucked, I'd tell them it sucked. But it is seriously one of the best tools I've seen. Like their support staff are phenomenal. We've all called, like what I hate about tech is I introduce a new software, they invest everything in signing you up. And then when you're calling tech support, you're talking to somebody who seems like it's their second day on the job, right? But when I talk to the tech support at Birdeye, their people are outstanding. They find other ways to do it. And it's not just reviews. Like if somebody leaves a review, they post it on Facebook, then they post it on Google. Their chat box allows me to have text talks with people real time. And it's a phenomenal thing, but there's no sense spending a crap ton of money on marketing at the front end and then not getting those reviews at the back end. So you have to finish your whole strategy with a way to capture reviews and keep that in your mind. And I imagine there's competition to them, but this platform is exceptional. And I don't say that about a lot of things.
The other thing too that I just quickly wanted to say is they also do great things for SEO. So SEO is an entire different presentation that I'd be happy to talk to any of you about and educate you further on it because it comes across as confusing and it doesn't need to be. But they also build you a small a landing page that you can use for Google Ad sets. And this landing page showcases all of your reviews, all of your 5-star reviews, and then also positions the contact information for your law firm. This again really helps separate yourself from the competition because you have an entire page showcasing all of your 5-star reviews, as well as a space on your website that you can also have the review section that showcases scrolling 5-star reviews, which tells the user when they're on your website that you guys are a great law firm that tons of people are talking about and raving about. As Philip said as well, it also populates to your social pages, which is what I was talking about as another step that clients, or another step in the sales funnel that clients use when they're trying to make a purchase decision when it comes to service professions.
Let me jump
If they
in there,
go on
see.
Google, sure, 1 second. If they go to Google and they see the reviews and then they go on Facebook, they're also being populated with the same reviews. So you're seeing these reviews everywhere you go, which is further pushing that client down the sales funnel.
I just saw a question come in, and it's one of the reasons why I like Birdeye. You go on their platform, you see their comments. Just go back a slide. You see their comments come in, and just go back a couple slides. See, you can respond to them. And I think it was one of the great support staff, Sahil at Birdeye, who told me, or somebody, we have concerns because we don't want a bad review, right? Because we think that any criticism of us means we're not bad. Nobody's perfect, and what we found is, in a credence profession, you have to be authentic, which means a bad review will happen, but you answer it. And I leave, I don't have too many, but I leave them up there, but I answer it. And then it makes it so it's much more legitimate. So don't be worried if somebody, if you've got 20 bad reviews in a row, you gotta reorganize yourself. But if a bad review comes up and you answer it honestly and authentically, people are like, okay, I see that. But I see 10 amazing comments saying that this person cares, this person goes over and above. So don't worry about bad reviews, but always respond to your reviews as well. On Google, Google loves if somebody leaves you a review that you just go on and say, hey, thank you. Nick Cake in our firm is an amazing lawyer and we're happy that you're happy. You responding to reviews actually helps your SEO as well.
So quickly, just to further explain, Angela, Birdseye also does a really great job of redirecting the negative reviews. So when you get a text message or an email that comes in, the first thing it asks you if you enjoyed your experience or if you didn't. And if you didn't, it actually tries to push you away from leaving a review on a public channel. Now, there's still a chance that you are going to get that negative review on a public channel if they feel passionate enough to share that negative review. And that's exactly where I agree with Philip, is own it and respond to it, because your response also holds a lot of weight. You can respond on that comment and publicly apologize and say, we'd love to reach out to you to make this better. Could you please send us an email at blah. We'd love to be able to speak to you further and make this right. That also speaks very highly about the law firm when someone sees a review. So absolutely. But Birdseye does do an exceptional job of trying to redirect those reviews. And we'll do the summary now.
Right on. So essentially, my stories and insights come from personal experience, but then also helping some law firms and other professionals. Because doctors, dentists, vets, they all suffer for the same obstacles we have, right? Where they're professionals who were used to people coming to us, so they have the same obstacles. I went from no website, or I actually spent a lot of money on one website that actually was just an expensive lawn ornament. It didn't do anything. No social media presence. My mentor would dictate memos, which would then be typed on fancy yellow paper. It was prehistoric. Now think of where we're going to be in 2 years. And that's what you want to be thinking about for your business. Okay, when we come out of this COVID crisis, where are we going to be in 2 years, and what tools do I need to get there? And hopefully we've given you some insight into some tools that can help you. Next slide. You guys all get a copy of the presentation, but here is an example of what I got set up in my firm, and it wasn't that hard. So WordPress website, kick-ass social media plan, G Suite. I'm wearing one of these Jabra headsets, which are much more comfortable than AirPods, but they don't look as cool. Zoom chat, we've covered all of that. But what I want to get across to you guys on our last slide is I hope that you're passionate about helping people. And that's why we became a lawyer, not just to bill, but all of us as business owners, we have to preserve capital and we have to increase revenue. And doing what worked in the past is not necessarily what's going to work in the future. So I don't know if you're old enough to know about Kodak, but don't be Kodak, right? When digital photos were coming out, Kodak just became much more efficient at being outdated. And as lawyers, we can't be efficient at being outdated. We need to grab these tech tools, reach out and speak to people who need us, because if we do that, it makes being a lawyer cool. People actually want to hear from us. It's not just lawyer jokes now. People are like, hey, I can go to that guy or girl and hear something that's interesting. not just a case citation, but something that allows us to leverage our platform to help people. Like new tech, consider new technology, the right new technology, like compound investing. It's going to be, if you do it early, it pays off hugely in the end. I think there's a quote, a Chinese quote that said the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. And I would finish by saying, actually, the best time to plant a technology tree is during the COVID crisis. So please feel free to reach out to Camille or I if you have any questions. It was a pleasure being there with you.
It was a pleasure having you both. I appreciate your presentation. Camille, you are passionate, I'll tell you. And even taking the moment to say, stop, just let me finish. Yeah, that was great. So we'll take questions here. I guess the first question is, are podcasts worthwhile?
So I wanted to answer that question first, and then I will let Philip finish it.
Sure.
Absolutely. But like anything else, it has to be backed by strategy, and it has to be done well. You can't do a podcast half pregnant. It's not going to be effective, and you're going to be wasting your time. So building a brand behind it, whether it's matching the brand of your law firm or the brand of yourself, your own personal persona, thinking about what channels you want to be on, what topics you want to talk about, and what niches you're going to service. So Philip and I had this conversation a few months ago, and we built out a podcast for him, and we made sure that the brand of his podcast is called The Rogue Lawyer, really showcased who he is as a lawyer and is specific to him as a lawyer. And Philip, do you want to speak about that as well?
No, I think, we're kind of inspired by, Gary Vee, and I hope a lot of the lawyers look at Gary Vee because he's 50 and he's an inspiration to all of us to stay current. And, you just have to make content every day and you get used to it. And I struggled with doing a podcast because I don't like the way my voice sounds. I wasn't in broadcasting, but you just start having good conversations with people, and it's like moving a boulder. It's slow, but after, you're doing it for a while, you'll get some traction. And if you don't beat yourself up about it, right? We're just trying to help people by getting our voices out there. From a criminal perspective podcast, what we're doing is, so Tiger King, for example, everybody's watched that crazy show. We do a podcast on, is Carol Baskin guilty? Because I have some ex-prosecutors who work here. People like that stuff. Or, Camille then said, hey, Waco is big on Netflix. Like do a discussion on Waco. There's some really interesting stuff you can do. But it doesn't have to be Hollywood quality, and it doesn't have to be fascinating. It just has to be you, so people can get to know you.
I had another question. What about Ruby Assistant? You didn't mention that service?
Yeah, I anticipated some people. I think Ruby Assistant is just, you can kind of replace a receptionist, I guess, by hiring Ruby Assistant. It works. I don't see it as a tech tool. I see that as a human resource option. I know some people like it, and if you can afford it and it works, it's fine. But I think by having Nextiva, the phone system on your laptops, cell phones, and the Clio system, you really don't need Ruby. I think Ruby Assistant was maybe a solution 5 or 10 years ago. I think your current tech-forward platform doesn't necessarily need it, but it can fit your circumstance.
Gotcha. And then if you were to make a suggestion as to be the number one thing or the first thing to do to get started, what would you suggest?
I'll defer to Camille.
The first thing, I would probably do an audit. Do an audit on yourself based off of this presentation and the 2 presentations prior, and see where you fit in with the recommendations that all of us made, and see where your weakest points are. If your website is okay, but you're in no way on socials, you're not focusing on reviews, or you don't have like a CRM system or a software in place like a Clio, that's probably where I would start. But it depends on your own situation.
Mm-hmm.
If you're starting from zero, then look to someone that can help you consult and find you your places. That's really where I would start.
Let me jump in. See, you need good data to make good decisions, right? And that's why I really like Clio, because it gives me data. I can go in and see, okay, where have my clients come from? I can list my clients in terms of the most profitable, like the Pareto principle, right? 20% of your clients generally give you 80% of your profits, right? So you want to find out, where did those 20% come from? Was it, and then focus your energy on getting more of those clients. And the audit that Camille talks about, you want to do like a social media audit, see if anybody is searching your name, see if your website is getting hits. And then with that information and your understanding of where you're getting your best clients from, then you can come up with a strategy to go in and laser focus on hitting those targets through digital media, I think.
Awesome. Next question. What are the ethical requirements of an attorney responding to a negative reviewer?
I guess as a lawyer, I would answer that. You know, I know that in Canada, there's no, you know, I'm not familiar with any restrictions on being able to respond to somebody's legal issues. Like, lawyers are terrified of being sued. And it's just not something that I'm really able to understand. And there's been times where I could have been sued. And I work in medical malpractice, which they did studies that says that surgeons who just weren't so full of themselves and finished a surgery and never talked to the person again, surgeons who just went into the recovery room and engaged, looked in the eyes of the people they operated on, and if they made a mistake, just said, "I'm really sorry I made a mistake." It reduced lawsuits by 30 to 40%, right? So the same thing applies to us. If we make a mistake, just be authentic and genuine. You can reduce the lawsuits. But if you're worried about saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, so now I'm going to get sued," you know, how can you be authentic? You know, that's all I would say. I don't know if your insurance, like your professional insurance, says you can't, then I'm not telling you to do it, but I know we can do it in Canada and a lot of American states.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times it seems to be dictated by bar rules or state bar rules. So, so next, what is your boosting and Facebook ad strategy? When you post on social media, are you boosting it every time, or are you only doing that for webinars?
So this is a long-winded answer, so I hope this is useful. The way that I strategize for boosting is dependent on the kind of medium that we're posting. So the social media strategies that I implement have different kinds of mediums, meaning on Mondays we'll do videos, on Wednesdays we'll do graphics, and Fridays we'll do blogs. Depending on the data that we collect from your user engagement, we boost accordingly. So all 3 of those posts per week are being boosted. If we post something in addition, again, it depends on the post. We don't generally boost things that aren't tied to something. Like if it's a Merry Christmas or a Happy Easter, we're not boosting that post. It's just a goodwill post. But we are boosting the strategic content that we are designing for the client. But the amount of money that is allocated to the post is dependent on the quality of the medium. So videos get more money than a static graphic do because videos perform higher on Facebook. Whereas some clients that I have, blogs do better than videos depending on their industry. So our blogs we boost more than we do the videos. Whereas some retail stores, if we're doing a sale promotion for their clothing, we might post the graphic or boost the graphic with more money than we would boost a video. So it's specific to the post, to the industry, as well as the data that we collect for your specific engagement group. So everything needs to be tied to data. And that's where I was talking about the frustration that I get with social media is it has to be backed by strategy. If your if your specific engagement group doesn't respond to videos, we might decide to pull that budget altogether. So you want to start from like an even keel where you're boosting everything the same to start out. Then from there, that's where you determine based off the data that you gather what works better for your subset and how much you're willing to allocate to your posts.
Let me jump in. It's actually a strategic and tactical question as well, based on you as a lawyer, because for a tangible example, I worked at a big firm before I started my own firm. They were spending literally a fortune on advertising, up to $100,000 a month on SEO. They weren't making any content, right? When we started making content, we're now on the same page, and I can tell you we spend probably $2,500 a month boosting posts strategically. So they're spending 100 and I'm on the same page as them. But then think about it, think of a billboard, you drive by it, people might see your name, but you can't engage right away. But so if I put some billboards are $4 or $5 grand a month, right? If I give Camille $4,000 to boost a post, right? She will kill it. I'll get 100,000 people review. I'll get 250 comments, all these shares. So you know, I have a bit of a special forces background. It's a force multiplier, like, and so, but it has to be tied to your strategy. Who do you want to target? What do you want to do? And the beauty of it is you can, so if something pops up on the news that I think is a good opportunity, I'll go to Camille. Hey, Camille, we need to get this out there. I'll draft it up. She'll make it look suitable, and she'll make it look amazing. And then I'll allocate a budget to it based on what my potential engagement is and rate of return is and where I want to go.
But the answer is no, we don't boost everything or every time. It depends on, like Philip said, what our goals are, what we're trying to achieve, and what
like
other,
if you're in
what other
family
things in the
law,
pipeline.
if you're in family law and there's a story about a guy who's gotten screwed over, right? Well, then you could boost something like we did. It was Camille's idea again. We did like a little ebook. I wrote an ebook. This is how a man can protect himself in child custody issues. We boosted that. We collected their info before they could download it. It was super successful.
That looks like about all the questions that we have on this end. I want to thank you both for batting cleanup, I guess, as they call it, and taking the last leg of the session. A lot of great information. I appreciate it, Camille and Philip. Any last remarks that you have before I move on?
Well, thank you, Chris,
No,
for hosting us.
Thank you.
It was great having you both. Thank you again.
Ciao.
So that will basically wrap up our presentation. We appreciate the fact that you've tuned in with us this afternoon, and I think you've gotten a lot of great information from Thomas and from Philip and from Camille, as well as from Emma. And I hope that helps your practices move forward during what looks like the end of COVID-19, but it may just be a groundhog kind of day situation. So let's see what happens. I wish you all the best. If you have any questions about Birdeye or would like to find more out about Birdeye, please feel free to contact me directly. It's chris@birdeye.com. We are an end-to-end customer experience solution. We can assist you with everything from web chat and initial touch point with a client, all the way through to surveys and determining what the client sentiment is during the course of their experience with your firm, and then wrapping it up with getting you reviews and helping to market those reviews, as both Camille and Philip mentioned. So I appreciate your time spent here today, and we hope to hear from you. Thanks so much.